Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Next Gen Dems and watching Next Gen Dems. I am your host, Curtis Wylde, DNC member and candidate for State Representative, District 107, made it official today. This is an impromptu episode of Next Gen Dems, which you can find on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and podcast.com. The audio is on iTunes and podcast.com. The video is on Facebook and YouTube. And I am here today with candidate for State
District, Legislative District 134.
134, State House District 134, Derrick Nowlin. Say hi, Derrick.
Hi, Curtis. How are you today?
I'm good, man.
Just like you, I came down here earlier this morning and made it official, and I'm excited to get going.
Excellent. So tell us where 134 is. Tell us about your district.
My district is basically South Central Springfield. It's definitely a urban area. I've got about 18,000 registered voters in my district, and I think
an urban area.
Urban area, yeah. We're it's mainly in the south central part of the city of Springfield, and it starts kind of in the middle of town and goes all the way south to the county line.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
who's the current representative there?
That would be Elijah Harr, who is the current Speaker Pro Tem, and he also is being groomed to be a Speaker next term. Obviously, I'm trying to keep that from happening.
So you're going against one of them big dogs, one of them heavy hitters.
I am, but I'll admit that it intimidated me at first, but then the more I thought about it, I realized, of all the, as far as being able to have a chance to make a true change in the state, this race is a huge opportunity to do that, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So what are some things that you're planning on doing maybe differently? This is your first time running, right?
This is my first time running. For a lot of years, I frankly have been angry at the way normal people are treated in this state and in this country. Never really considered getting into politics, being an avenue as far as being a way to change that realistically. Mm-hmm. I think you might agree. You and I coming up, we were always kind of taught that, well, it's a certain class of people that run for office.
Yeah,
and it definitely won the class that I was a part of. So
explain that class when you envisioned it in your mind's eye.
Right.
What exactly did you see as far as the people that were getting involved in politics, the people that were allowed to be involved in politics, at least from our viewpoint?
Well, first and foremost, money. Plain and simple. People that had money.
Yeah.
It was definitely never working people or everyday people. Generally, the professional class, which is certainly nothing wrong with that either. But I would say first and foremost, it would be the money. So
yeah.
Money and frankly, what I've seen in my lifetime is a lot of cynicism in regards to how the government works and what it's there for. And the people
well, it's
with the
been
money,
pretty obvious that
right.
They haven't been serving the needs of the people.
Right.
So.
Not only that, but they have subverted the whole system to make it work for just them and a few.
Yeah.
And through that they've convinced.
How are some ways that they've done that? Explain to the audience exactly how they've gotten us from where we should be to where we are now.
Well, a lot of it is straight up messaging. And I would say, too, a problem we've had, a lot of people who are younger may not know, we used to have a thing called the fairness doctrine. And what I'm getting towards with that is the way the media covers news and politics in this country. They used to have to give equal time to opposing viewpoints in politics, and that went away during the Reagan era. His FCC got rid of that, and next thing you know, you have Fox News.
And the next thing you know, you have net neutrality.
Being under attack, right?
Being under attack by the FCC.
Right.
So they want to control the message.
They want to control the message. And when you look at news, unless you really hunt for it online, for example, How many companies control all the media in this country?
I believe it's 5 or 6.
And the news isn't there to be news. The news is there to be entertainment. They have commercials during the news. That's what the news is for. So,
that's what it turned into. I know when I was a kid, my grandmother used to consistently, constantly, incessantly watch the news, and I couldn't stand it at the time. But back then they actually delivered news. They delivered unbiased news.
That's very...
And today, it's whoever your owners are, that's who you're going to suck up to.
Right.
That's who you're going to amplify the message for and of.
Right.
So what do we do about that, Derrick?
Well, getting a little background on everybody here. Curtis and I were both in Philadelphia as Bernie delegates.
True story.
A true story. And the strongest impression I had from Philadelphia was that everything I was experiencing there started at a local level.
Yeah.
And what we were experiencing there was local politics en masse. And so that made me very determined to come back and work
to change
locally.
that system.
Right. And, I'll give an example. What can we do locally to affect things that would really be on a national level? But, I know you're from St. Louis. Now, in my area in Springfield, basically all of our local news is owned by one company now. And
that's true.
Now how can you affect that at a national level? Well, you could make that known locally. You can make it an issue.
See or you can become your own media like we're trying to do right here
at
Next Gen
God bless
Dems.
the internet. So
that's right.
It has democratized information in a huge way, which is why they want to do away with net neutrality, obviously.
Absolutely why they want to do away with net neutrality. And a lot of people say the revolution will not be televised. And that's true.
No.
That's true because it's going to be live streamed
you beat me to
across social media. And it will be the sounding board and the platform for people to mobilize and organize and take this country back. So do not allow them to take away net neutrality.
No.
It's that simple.
And that does start locally with getting hold of your Congress people and your senators, obviously. Now I'm kind of getting off the path here because I'm running a state race.
That's all right.
And
That's
talking about
right.
local issues, and we're kind of talking about meta issues here, really. But
we can do anything we want to right here. That's what I love about this is the freedom. Do you like the freedom of being able to be here at Aris Pizzeria right here in Jeff City? We were just able to set up and throw down, and now we're able to amplify your message.
Well, I do. So But anyway, getting back to the media, that's the problem. You're asking how we get to this point. Through the media, and not just the news, but TV shows, movies, this kind of thing. There's a prevailing, basically they push a narrative, and they have convinced a lot of people that what's good for the wealthy is good for everybody else. And
what do you think about? And before we get into the income inequality, the obvious thing that is a resounding issue that causes a lot of our other issues. I want to focus on entertainment. You talked about movies. What do you think of all this backlash with Black Panther?
I think it's predictable. I think the backlash is, I'm not sure how much of it is real and how much of it is, manufactured.
Contrived by the Russians.
Right. Right, comrade, roll dupes. But, and that's it. Who can say these days? The back. I think it's a shame.
I think everybody's trying to turn everything into a social sounding board, one way or another, regardless if you're on the right or the left. If you're on the right and something really liberal happens, you're going to attack it. The left is going to defend it, and that's just how I think it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Well, and I think we have to find a way to get past that.
I think we absolutely have to find a way to get past that.
We're talking big issues. What can we do about it? But getting right to the heart of what I'm doing, what you're doing, running locally, when I go out and talk to people door to door, there's a lot of agreement on the issues, regardless of the party. And, so far in my district, talking to people, I've talked to people of all stripes who, the Republicans, the conservatives, that say, look, I'm Republican, I'm conservative, but what we have right now is just way too far, and I don't recognize it. And, I think if we stick to our issues and, to bring back the media, that is money in politics. They bought the lobbyists and the politicians to allow this to happen. And,
they attack unions.
They do. And,
unions donate a lot to Democratic candidates because they know that Democratic candidates work for the working people. And they're trying to attack every means and source of unseating them.
Right. And, thanks to the internet, we have the ability to work around that. And also, I'm kind of a little all over the place here, but I'm just saying things as they occur to me.
Freedom!
Because I keep thinking about what happens, when I work locally. I talk to people who may, have voted a certain way for a long time, but they really are open to, to a change. And
well, where you connect with people is on the issues. It's
right.
on your platform. It's on your policies.
It is.
It's on the things that you're going to fight for that's important to you and important to the people in your community that your opponent might not share.
Well, and you just said a big word that means a lot to me is community. Because in the act of going out and talking to the voters in my district or really anywhere, you're building a sense of community that I've not really seen much of in my life. I've never lived a lot of places where I felt like I was a part of a community. And when you go out and can talk to the people in your area and, really get to know what everyone was thinking, where they're coming from, that does start to happen. I think that makes a big difference. I think that'll, I'm really excited to see what our voter turnout is going to be in the midterms. I think hopefully it'll be record-setting.
I've been saying a lot, to touch back on community, I've been saying a lot, we've got to show unity with our community.
We do.
We got to be getting out there, reaching out to our neighbors and reforming neighborhoods.
We do.
Because that's gotten lost along the way, and it was never more prevalent than in 2016 when I was knocking doors, and I would go to a door, and I'd knock the door, and they'd say, wow, I'm so glad the Democrat is running in this district. I'm the only Democrat on my block.
Right.
And then I would go to their next door neighbor, and they'd say, wow, I am so glad a Democrat is running in this district. I am the only Democrat on my block. And guess what? You need to talk to your neighbors a little bit more, folks. You need to get to know your community, and the more that you do, the more you can take power over what happens to you and what's going to happen to your children, grandchildren, and future generations.
It's true. I think, before a lot of us got involved recently, because of Bernie, I think we all felt like that. I felt like a voice in the wilderness for years and years and years. I thought I was the only one that had these progressive views. People around me would, certainly make me feel that way, and it sounds like you felt the same way. And that was the great thing that has happened since then is, we're all out in the open. We all know we're here. Yeah. And we have all worked together as a force. And, things are not where we'd like them by any means, but they're definitely going in the right direction, and they weren't doing that when I got involved. I think. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, we spent 10 years losing elections, and we lost over 1,000 seats within the Democratic Party, so
right.
Whatever was happening before wasn't working. And it's really evident.
And that's just it. It's not even, it is the party, but the party and the losses, they're really a symptom going back to the issues that the party is running on. And, I really think that, the party is becoming more progressive. I think it will continue to become more progressive. I think it has to.
I think the more that it listens to the voice of the people, the more progressive it's going to get. Because the issues and the platforms that you and I both support, healthcare is a human right, tuition-free education, social justice, economic justice, Black Lives Matter, money out of politics, all of these things are things that a majority of people support.
They are.
And they poll. I mean, across the polls, the majority of people support most of the things that we run on, but there's so much to this identity politics. You've been a Republican for years, so you got to vote Republican.
Right.
No, you don't. No, you don't. If you want things to change, you have to change them. And you have to make sure that your voice and your vote matters, and matters to not just you, but to future generations.
Oh, and
for future generations.
And that's why going out and talking to people is so important, because, I've literally have had conversations where I've talked to a couple people for 20, 30 minutes. Could tell that they were Republican voting, right wing leaning, but on the issues we were all agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't until at the end of a 30-minute conversation they asked what party I'm running in.
And then they didn't like you no more.
No, they didn't care at that point. They did like me. They liked me, and they liked my issues.
There's definitely something to that, man.
Right.
Once you get past that R and that D, and you get right to the meat and potatoes of what you stand for, that's what Americana stands for. That should be the American dream for a majority of people. I really don't believe, in my heart of hearts, that there are people out there that genuinely believe I should do better and no one else should. I think that there's a lot of people out there that go, I want to do better than the next guy, but I think that everybody should do better too.
Right.
In their heart of hearts, that's what I believe a majority of people believe. So we have to reach people on a really deep level and connect with them there.
That is so true. And, even the most, conservative person I could speak to at the door still, there's human decency there. And,
touching on that, my first...
I lost my train.
I saw that, and I'm coming in for
really
the save.
Good to go with that, and
making
it's
the
like,
save, making the save. So my first 4x8 signs of my 2016 election, 2 of them were in Republican yards, and it's because of that.
Right.
It's because we were able to connect on the issues, and some people are out there willing to look past that letter.
I do remember what the point I was going to,
Go right ahead.
The parting of the ways, it always happens with, and I'll let you guess what the 2 issues are. One starts with an A, where you part with the conservatives, abortion. What's your view on abortion?
Right.
I have been surprised and kind of heartened to,
Sorry, man.
Derrick,
Go ahead.
Every person I've talked to in my district that would consider themselves, pro-life, and that's a term I think we need to take back, frankly.
Agreed. You talk about it, then I will.
That's a different topic, but I'll get to that in a second. But
dig in.
The most ardent pro-lifers, anti-abortion. That's what I will say. These people are anti-abortion,
anti-choice.
Right, but even they, when I talk to them, there should still be exceptions for rape. There should still be exceptions for
incest.
That too, mother's health, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, that's an issue that has, really been made to be divisive, and that's kind of media conditioning too. That's a handy issue to divide people with.
It's also the messaging of us giving them the power to say that they are pro-life.
Right, and we do need to take that back because
just pro-birth.
Right,
because after that baby is born, they're on their own. They're off into the world, and God be with you. And if you don't make it, that's your own fault.
Right, and I couldn't agree more. Jean Chanda. Mm-hmm. Yeah, her and I. She lives down in our area, and.
We Progressive Caucus of the Missouri Democratic Party.
Which I am also the secretary of that.
Yes, you are?
Yes.
Nominated by this guy?
Thank you very much, Curtis.
Just saying.
Yeah. I'm really proud of the Progressive Caucus, and we also have a Greene County Progressive Caucus that we've started down in my area, which is also doing amazing things. But
it's funny you brought up Gene, because nominated by this guy? Hi, Gene. What's up?
I'll keep feeding you straight lines. And,
there you go.
Yeah. But, her and I have actually talked about this thing specifically, how we do use the messaging to get terms like pro-life back from the other side.
We need to.
And, it really is just, a consistency of message, which I think having good progressive issues allows us, because we don't have to think about, I'm for these things. I just am.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about it. And, if we, go and talk to people that way, I think that issue could be blunted a little bit. And the other one, first it was, that one, now with the events of the last couple of weeks, I think things are changing. But guns is the other big issue that seems to divide.
So how do you breach that subject at the doors, given that things like Parkland are really turning that debate around and seeing our children fight for sensible gun laws is a whole different thing.
I'll own my issues. If I know the other person doesn't agree with me, I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
But it's exactly how I feel about it. And, if they're an older person, I can honestly talk to them. And I literally had this conversation the other day that, when I was younger, or I'm talking to this person, we were younger, the NRA was a gun safety organization, very low horsepower. They weren't looking to get into politics. And, what they've turned into is a weapons lobbying arm. And they have used marketing to convince people that, you got to be well armed and maximum armed and all these things. When people want to get me into that talk, I say, I don't have a problem with guns. I grew up shooting guns. I'm actually a really good shot.
Not to brag or anything.
Right. I understand. But,
it's like, yeah, I'm bragging a little, just a little.
But, I don't want to take anyone's guns away. I just think,
I don't think
we need
a
to dial
single
it back
Democrat wants to take anybody's guns away.
They don't.
They want to make sure that mentally ill people cannot obtain them.
Right. Or, you need an arsenal. I think there needs to be some sensibility. There used to be an assault weapons ban, and they did away with it.
Yeah. And
the police were the ones that wanted the assault weapons
200%.
banned.
The police were the ones who started that whole thing.
And, because...
The assault weapons ban.
And I'm going to quit talking about the NRA, but I'm going to say, those groups, they have, that's part of what they've done is they have, we can't have any discussion about the Second Amendment with any sort of, calmness or reasonableness, reasonability. I don't think reasonableness is a word, but...
if there's any regulation, it's too much regulation as far as they're concerned.
And we, and that's not a serious position to take. We need to have a serious talk. I mean, there are no absolutes in life, and that's just, I think that is another issue that's been hijacked, and, frankly, it's gotten dangerous. It's life and death.
It has gotten dangerous. You look at these commercials that they're putting out with Dana Loesch, talking about the clenched fist of freedom and all these things. They are trying to start a civil war. They're actively attempting to start a civil war and to get blood flowing in the streets. So how do we, and when they're willing to go that far, when they're willing to flip that leaf over and go that direction, what do we do? What do we do that reaches out to the American people and says enough is enough?
And that's the
because
$1 million
that's
question.
What Derrick Nowlin's buttons say. Enough is enough.
Enough really is
hold that
enough.
close to the camera. I want people to see that.
I had beyond enough starting a long time ago, actually, but only recently in my life have I felt empowered to actually, become involved and do something about it. And
well, of course, we feel that enough is enough, but how do we convey that and to find other people that share in that and to mobilize them?
I don't want to be a broken record, but doors, get out on the doors. There's lots of other ways. Canvassing is really the thing that I like to do the most. It's why I do the most. Of course, you could have events. Media, what you're doing, is a wonderful way to reach new people. Ever since I have got involved, I've looked at what I do, what you're doing, what we're all doing really is we're planting seeds. Mm-hmm. I never know who is going to respond to anything I have to say or any way I am acting, but, you never know, so I always try to be very aware of both what I'm saying and how I'm acting, because, it's reflecting on what I'm representing, and even more so, I feel like I reflect on, the party, progressives, all of it, so...
you feel like you got to carry that on your back. You have to
wear
that mantle.
But it's not a weight, it's not a responsibility.
It's not a burden. It's not a burden, but you feel necessary to wear that mantle. Just like the Batman cowl is not a burden to him. This is our superpower.
Well, it's just that's where we're at. I mean, we don't, I feel, and running for office is another manifestation of that. It just, things have gotten way too far. Enough is enough, and I don't ever feel, how do you take a day off from pending doom? I mean, you don't. You fight it as hard as you can, and that's what I'm doing. And
my wife and daughter would appreciate if I took a little more time off from impending doom, but they both know that there isn't a day gone by that we can.
Oh, you have to every now and then, but I mean, every day, every moment I'm awake, I just feel that.
I'm kidding. No, there are days that I have to unplug. I can't look at Facebook. I just need to get away from the social media and the vitriol, and I don't even want to know what 5.9 lies Donald Trump has told that day, or who he's tweeted about, or how he's almost caused World War III at 3 a.m. sitting on a toilet. I don't need to know that every day. I think
a lot of that is by design too. It's supposed to keep us all rattled and kind of despairing.
Yeah,
all that kind of thing.
It's actually shock politics. And, it is a styling of politics where you do something so horrendous, and before people have a chance to bounce back from that or to even wrap their head around how horrible that was, you hit them with something else just as bad, if not worse. Mm-hmm. And then they're already past that first thing because now you're on to that second thing.
Well, and you make them numb.
Yeah, there's a lot
after
of that.
the shooting in Florida, I posted where, I think I'm supposed to be numb, but I just can't be because, if I became numb, I didn't feel the outrage, then I wouldn't feel compelled to try to do something about it. And so I refuse to ever get numb to these things. But
we can't give in.
Well, you can't. But I'm starting to go down a gloom and doom trail here. That's the problem. The solution.
Let's keep it positive.
There's a lot of that's what I was getting ready to go to. There's a lot of rays of hope out there, and locally where I live, I've never seen people so involved and participating and aware, and I'm sure it's the same up in St. Louis as well. So, going into a midterm. I can't ever recall so much energy about a midterm election.
Yeah, I don't think that I've ever seen this much energy.
I think, there's a lot of people out there.
On an off year? On a year that a president isn't being decided?
Right. Yeah. And, people like us were running for office. Other people are helping candidates. Other people are doing petitions.
They're mobilizing and organizing?
They are, I know, and that really, they hate when we do that, but that's why we keep doing it, so.
Well, we have to do it.
Yeah, we have to do it. But,
because to this point, they've been beating us at that game.
But seriously, what it does is, it gets back to what can we do, and I'm going to tie it back into the local level. It shows people in your local area that, there is this group of people that are always doing something about this, and, Did you get some better people to interview?
No, not at all. Keep going.
I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying. It's all tied together. And, I think the energy that we bring to it gets into the people who are, not yet involved but want to be that kind of thing, and kind of gives them some inspiration, some courage to, I am going to go out and volunteer for this thing. I am going to run for this seat that no one else is running for, or I'm going to look into a local group that, I'd always heard about but never really did anything with. Maybe it's time to go to that meeting or talk to those people.
And that's one of the big reasons that I got involved is because people look at me and they can tell that guy's not your typical politician. that guy is not,
You're not your typical anything.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I will wear that like a badge of honor and scream it loud, scream it proud. But I'm an example. I'm an example that regular people can run for office. People can just look at me and know that. But once they hear me, once they talk to me, they realize that I'm just a regular guy running for office trying to make change for regular people. So win, lose, or draw, I'm setting that example. I'm not just setting that example for other people. I'm setting that example for my daughter.
Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned trees. We're planting seeds. We're planting seeds. And I just spoke at the Working People's Day of Action downtown St. Louis last Saturday. And there was a young gentleman that came over with a bullhorn, just happened to happen during when I got up to the mic, and afterwards he came up and apologized to me, and I was like, look, you're planting seeds too. The thing that you're doing is important to you. You're planting seeds, and I'm planting seeds as well. The seeds that we're planting, we may never enjoy the shade of. We may never be able to sit underneath these trees, but our children can, and our grandchildren can. We're building something for people that are going to come after us, and this isn't about us. None of this is about us. It's all about not me, us.
Yeah.
I mean, singularly. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the collective. It's about everyone.
I've said this whole time, exactly the same thing. And, it is for my kids and my granddaughter and your kids and everyone else's kids. It's for everybody. This was never about me. I'm at an age where, I'm doomed anyway, so
yeah.
save yourselves, everybody. But
even if we started turning it around right now and moving towards sustainable
but
energy,
morally,
it's going to take us 20, 25 years. I'm going to be 60 years old.
Fight like hell to not hand our kids this mess.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, just straight up, no filter, that's where a lot of my motivation comes from. It's like, I'm not handing you this.
Not here to play.
It's messed up that I got handed this, but I'm not going to hand it to you.
Exactly right.
I'll just.
And if we don't start working towards improving it now, then we're handing it.
We got a lot of hard work in front of us, and and that's the other thing. I'm talking about these things. I'm talking about working locally and doing it with the spirit of, frankly, openness and not anger and fighting, but. That is something else that I think that we do as progressives is when it's time to hold that line, we hold that line.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going back on this issue an inch.
This is where I stand. This
right.
is what I believe.
I'm not going to get up and throw a fit about it, but I'm not going to budge on it either.
Right.
And, I think
that
is something else that we need from our side in politics, obviously.
That's integrity. That's being willing to stand when no one else is willing to stand with you.
I'm not doing this. That's the only reason I'm doing this, the issues. Those issues get money out of politics. Our income inequality is a disaster. That gets into our health care. That gets into, a lot of social issues we have.
Yeah.
I just think that,
there's a lot
that's
of
another
change
conversation.
that needs to happen.
Between, racial disparities, and especially in this state with, what has happened up in St. Louis and Ferguson, and seems to continue to keep happening, and it happens all over the country. Those are some other, lines and issues that we just have to stay steadfast on.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, I think they're all tied together.
I agree. I agree.
I think
it's all. We live in an intersectional society.
Right.
Everything is so tied together right now, and if you're not seeing how it intersects, you're gonna have to look deeper.
Right.
Because everything is intersecting these days. So we're going to have to work on a lot of issues, Derek. We're going to have to work on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But before we finish off, we've got a couple new candidates that came in.
Right.
I'm going to pull them into the show. I'm going to pull them into this episode. So before we do that, I want to let everybody know how to get a hold of you and how they can contribute and get involved in your campaign.
Look for me on Facebook. My website will be up soon. I also have an Act Blue account. Derrick Nowlin, just look for my Derrick Nowlin and Act Blue.
Search Derrick Nowlin, Act Blue. Spell that for him.
DERRICK, NOWLIN.
And your
or
website?
also Nowlin for the 134th. You probably want to search for it that way, actually. I don't actually go look for my own Act Blue page, so I'm not
Gotcha.
sure.
Well, what you should do is get a subdomain, much like my subdomain. It's donate.wildforthepeople.com, and you can even misspell it if you want to spell wild the regular way.
Yes.
You can type in donate.wildforthepeople.com.
I'm familiar with your...
way.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've had occasion with your subdomain before.
You've been on there.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
So
I appreciate
I apologize.
that.
You kind of caught me off guard with the
appreciate
contact info.
All good. But the website is...
Website is not up yet.
Okay. All right. The Facebook
I suck,
is...
but I will have it up. Facebook is now for the 134th, and I will have that up in the next day or two.
Nowlin for the 134th. All right.
Yep.
Check out Derrick Nowlin on Facebook. And right now, we're going to bring in some candidates that just walked in. Sarah, if you'd like to come on over, we're going to have you come on over here. And John, come on over and sit next to Derrick. We are bringing you guys in. You're going to have to step over those cords right there.
I get heels, Curtis.
I apologize. I
You
apologize.
won't see this often.
All right. How's that shot? We're still looking good over there?
Are we live too?
No,
So we're going to...
but he's not going to edit, he
Right?
says.
I'm not editing.
Yeah.
I'm not editing. This is just going straight in. And we've got
I'm
a
going to have to try
microphone
that
right
hairstyle, then I won't have to worry about the wind or anything.
I loved it when I did it. I did it for about 5 years or so. And then I said, no, I ain't having it. I'm going to grow my hair out, and I'm going to donate it to Locks of Love. But, thank you.
You're such a teddy bear.
No tears, Derrick, no tears.
coming.
But when it came down to it, they apparently have rules that I didn't know I was supposed to follow, like trimming it every 6 months or something.
really?
And, yeah. So
You don't just grow out
This
3 feet of hair?
No, you can't just grow out hair for 5 or 6 years and cut it all off and give it to them. There's rules.
You got to keep the ends trimmed and all
Gotta
that
think
stuff.
so.
Yeah.
Wash it at
Yeah.
least once every 2 weeks.
Come
Come on, guys, not a surf, please.
I'm not doing it. I watch this every
At
a lot of
least.
washing.
Yeah, that's a lot of water.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
I thought you were a Democrat.
Like with soap?
Right.
We're trying to consume water.
Water is life, I'm sorry.
Can't be. Okay, so let's start with the lady, Sarah Hinkle, right?
That's me. Yeah.
That is you. Today was the day you made it official.
I did.
And
I
you are-
marched right down there and said, listen, you're going to file me.
You are. You are going to file me. And what district are you running in? Let's hear more about that.
I am in District 162 for State House, which is largely, it's about a third of Joplin, maybe half of Webb City, all of Dunawig, which I'm sure you haven't heard of, and a little piece of Carl Junction. So
How do you know I haven't heard of Dunawig? Maybe that's my old stomping grounds. Maybe I got some
Maybe
peeps
so.
at Dunawig. Let's get some shout-outs from Dunawig.
maybe you've thrown a chair in a
That's
wrestling
what I was
match.
Like you busted a few tables and done away.
Maybe
Yeah.
I threw a chair in Eldon and it made it to Dunawig.
It's a long toss. That is some Scottish heaving. What's that called?
Like pole tossing or something, isn't it?
Something, yeah.
Something, yeah.
I don't know. It sounds a little dirty. What do you think, John
She
Kiehne?
got you on that one.
That's true.
She threw that right in there.
That's true. So, before we really get into your district, tell us a little bit more about you and what brought you down this path to run for office.
So I've always been democratically minded. I grew up in a different state. When I moved to Missouri, I didn't really realize there were other Democrats in Joplin until 2016. And I attribute it all to just pure fate, dumb luck, whatever it was. Obviously, I got really involved in Bernie's campaign. I loved his message. And
That's obvious to me. Let's make it obvious to the voters. Tell them exactly how or to the viewers, my bad, and listeners.
Well, they could be voters,
because
too. I hope
They
so.
could be
Right,
voters.
right.
They could be voters. Because we are not live right now. We are recording live here at Aris in Jefferson City, which is a great pizzeria. They get awesome spin dip. And their
Right across from
gyro,
the Capitol, too.
and their gyro was awesome. Right across from the Capitol. That's how I knew about this place.
Right. And free parking if you drive in enough circles
Yes.
and wait for it.
Which I got, by the way.
But I dropped a quarter for like
I
90
got-
minutes. Or no, it was a quarter an hour.
Yeah.
And there was already
Which is
34
still-
minutes still on there. So
That's still not too bad. A quarter.
we
an
might
hour.
need to check that. As a matter of fact, Chrissy Wylde, she is my production assistant on most of my episodes of Next Gen Dems. Which, real quick, before we continue on, you can check out at Facebook, YouTube, podcast.com, and iTunes. So, and be sure to check that out. Be sure to subscribe. As I said, we're not live right now. We are recording live.
We are alive.
We're
I
taking an
wanna see her
Ussie.
catch
Let's
this.
take an Ussie. Everybody
Oh my
lean in.
gosh,
Everybody
Usception.
lean in. We're going to get it done. See, we are unlike any podcast that you will ever be on.
Yeah. I just blew my
there
own
you
mind
are.
with that, whatever just happened. I feel like I should break out my own phone, too.
That's awesome. So tell us about how you got involved in the Bernie campaign and how that got you here.
Okay, so I loved his messaging. I mean, I am someone who went to college and a little bit of grad school, but I couldn't afford to stick with it. I was working 2 full-time jobs and going to grad school. Hi. and I'm in a lot of debt because of it, of a degree that I didn't even get to finish. So it really resonated with me, his message of a living wage and doing something to fix education, tuition, the cost of it, all of that. Really stuck with me. And just
income inequality.
Exactly,
the whole big picture of it.
And just if anyone actually got involved and went to any of his rallies or anything like that, just the joy of those crowds. It wasn't negative politics like you see so much now. It was loving and welcoming and accepting. And I had found
it was
people.
almost like church.
Right.
It was almost like church. There were people crying. There were people singing. There were people dancing, hugging, group hugs. It was unbelievable. The energy in those rooms, the energy in all those rallies, even when Bernie wasn't there, when you were on the county level and you were doing the delegate selection stuff, it was amazing. Just the camaraderie, and you don't see that in politics anymore. So when that happened, I felt a change, and I think that
I don't think you really saw it before either. I think
No.
that was really kind of a,
I don't think so. I think there were a lot of people that were around for a really long time that said that they had never seen anything like it before. Mm-hmm. They were a few people that gave some comparisons to McGovern because he was
way back.
He was really popular.
I never felt that was a good comparison, though.
No.
I mean, similar, but not.
Once I saw some documentaries on it, I was like, he wasn't quite Bernie.
No.
It was William Wallace was a little more like Bernie.
Right.
But before we continue on, let's bring John in. John Kiehne is running for Congress in the 3rd District against Blaine Luke DeMaio. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
You got a primary, but
I
if
do.
things go your way, it's going to be Blaine.
Yeah, I am running for U.S. Congress, like you said, against Blaine Luke DeMaio. And
we've actually got another mic there, but I didn't bring an extra arm.
yeah.
If you want to use it, that's cool too.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And man, I was motivated to run for office kind of. I mean, the Trump era has been very troubling for a lot of people. But man, trying to communicate with my own guy, with my representative, it was just challenging. Like,
I should show the audience the picture I just showed you.
of your missing. You're missing legislator.
Sorry, I'm gonna let you finish.
No, I have the same problem. So it's the same thing in my district.
She's gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had the greatest video in
No,
the
that's
world.
different. I love lemonade.
So he and I were just talking before we got on the show about our representatives not representing us. We can't even see them.
Right.
His district has 13 counties.
13 counties.
I live in the 7th district, which has 11 counties. I have toured all 11 of them. I have never in all of my days seen Mr. Billy Long in person. And so and I cannot take singular credit for this. There are a lot of wonderful people in the 7th district who put together some of these flyers that were pretend like missing flyers. And this, have you seen me, we're missing Billy Long.
Does he really exist?
One of those
I'm starting to
things.
wonder.
Right. In your face.
I'm not even sure he's a real person.
I recommend if you're in the 7th,
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
get a hold of us. We can definitely get you copies of this. If you're in someone else's district and they're missing too, I would say do some kind of campaign to.
Not to rain on John's parade, but you guys got somebody running against him too?
I was going to ask about that. I was like,
So a few names have come forward. We have confirmed, I believe there's a man named John Farmer who is running and a man named Vince Jennings. I've heard whispers that maybe another person or two are considering. I'm not going to drop names until they officially declare, but there will definitely be a primary in that race and somebody on the ticket as a Democrat.
Gotcha.
Good.
It's actually a good problem to have down there in that race because you were right about both those guys, Vince Jennings and John Farmer. And it's a good problem to have when you've got too many good candidates.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
So, and that's kind of our issue in the 3rd now. It
Well,
went from nobody being willing to run against Blaine to now there's you, there's Katie Gephardt.
Right, and then a couple other people
there's
I
a few
saw.
other people that I'm hearing
even a couple
may
of
throw their
Republicans.
hats in the ring.
So I mean, the goal is, and I think I heard you mention this before, is like kind of the team effort of trying to make a run at these people. So, the goal is to replace Blaine, with a Democrat.
Yeah.
So whoever gets there to do it, I think we all benefit from putting pressure on him. Like he's going to have to talk about the issues. He's going to, I would assume, going to have to do something to get his face seen, in our district. And I mean, obviously, my hope is that we have a Democrat that can, actually be in that office. But at the very least, we're putting pressure on him and hoping for the best and doing a lot of work.
He's sitting at about $3 million right now.
He's sitting at about $3 million,
like
and
2.7 or something.
And he's a multimillionaire on top of that. So,
so he could just drip his own money in there.
In
Now, let me ask you something.
Yes.
Was he a multimillionaire? Give me just a moment. Was he a multimillionaire before he got into politics?
I'm not really sure. Now, he started in State House in 2004, 2005, something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You know what I find really interesting is how many people get into these seats that pay, $40,000 a year, a couple $100,000 a year, and before you know it, they're multimillionaires.
Like, where's that money come from? No, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You should never go into politics and come out a multimillionaire. If you did, you did something wrong.
Well, and I'm thinking...
You took payoffs.
Right.
You took bribes. You took something. You took money that you shouldn't have.
Paid. It's $174,000 a year.
You're not representing the people who are actually paying your salary.
Right.
What were you saying, Kristen?
Apparently, this just came across my feed. Apparently, U.S. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan will be in Springfield, Missouri on Friday with the incumbent Mr. Billy Long for a fundraiser.
Is there a time
we didn't need to give them a plug.
Gotta check my calendar here.
So you're going to show up, you're going to protest. If anybody goes to that thing, you're going to protest.
Right.
You're going to make it as difficult as possible for those guys to get people out and get them involved in their movement. Make them miserable. If anybody goes, but my choice, I would say just completely steer clear. Tell all your friends, all your family, do not go, because it's not the place that you want to be with Paul Ryan and Billy Long. But tell me more about what got you into politics and what path you took to get here.
It was Curtis Wylde, and I discovered this guy Curtis Wylde, and I was really looking for Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and I found Curtis.
Okay, I'm close.
Common mistake.
I've actually partied with Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
Right, see?
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew there was a connection.
There it was.
And just, I started to contact the Democratic Party, DMP, which at the time I'm like, who do I get a hold of about... MDP, sorry.
Right.
To see, hey, could I knock doors? Or could I do a phone bank or something? So to get involved, because I'm a songwriter and I've been writing songs about social issues for 35 years. But I write songs, and, you have a comment on Facebook, you talk amongst your friends, and you can go on iTunes, you can listen on music and download it, and there's a message in my stuff typically. But to make a change with that, I'm not Rage Against the Machine, number one. They're more popular, they can move more people, or U2. A big artist can move
more influence.
They have more influence. And I'm like, what can I do to get more involved in this stuff that bothers me? So I've been a foster parent advocate for 10 years, and I would say that my path of being a musician, writing tunes about social issues, and then dealing with St. Louis County courts and all these different institutions and being a foster parent it's a lot of bureaucracy involved. It got me in the habit of having to go to meetings and having to, find resources for kids and doing a lot of work that I didn't get paid for that needed to be done in service of these kids. And so...
Well, that's the world of politics. You're doing a whole lot of work that you didn't get paid for.
Right, so when they kept saying, I started calling in July, and I was like, hey, is anybody running? Because then they're like, oh, nobody's running. Do you want to run? And I was like, do I know you? And I dismissed it completely. But I kept looking, like, what's going on in 3? And I'd write a letter occasionally to Blaine, and my response would be like something that was just, I think the staffer looked at Fox News and went, oh, there's the Fox News talking point. And I was like, no, man. So I was not seeing anything, and then I called in December, and they were still, like, really unsure about who was going to run and didn't really have a name, and pulled somebody out. And I looked up that person, and that person was invisible. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll run. I'll try. Why not? Because nobody else, no other seasoned politician who has a name or whatever is running. And I do play music, so I'm used to being in the public spotlight and whatever, so it doesn't bother me. So I just decided to run and started making calls and reached out, like met a few people, connected with you, some other people, Corey Bush, who's running in one, some people who got back to me and said, hey, here's what you do, or here's who you talk to, or try this.
Here's the path.
Yeah, and the path is not, it is challenging. And I believe that progressives, Democrats, whatever we have a lot of work to do in our own party. There are a lot of very motivated people at the grassroots, such as yourself, and all the people that I meet that are running, they're really working hard. Yeah. And I know that we're in a rebuilding season, but, this is all new to me. Like, my idea of what this was going to be like 3.5 months ago was totally different than what it is. Yeah. But what I want to happen
the
is...
reality doesn't really meet the idea of
No,
running.
it doesn't. It doesn't. But the end result, I still want the same end result. And the end result is that I want to be able to see progressive ideals out there in being in Congress, or in Missouri. We have like the state house is very GOP led, and so I would like to see voices that are like, even God, give me a moderate. I'll take a moderate over some of these people, but really,
that's one of us.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But we're considering the alternative.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm like, I really want to see people who present themselves as nice people, who think of other people besides themselves, who are not beholden to money.
We need a whole lot more of that, don't we?
Yeah, and I'm just like, Democrats have a big tent. We have a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas. But I think they all fall within the, hey, let's be nice to each other. Let's not steal. Let's not lie. Let's try to do our best to help kids and help.
Have a little compassion.
Compassion,
Empathy. What happened
to
that?
Well, I think if you start with, hey, what benefits everybody or the most people, and work your way out from there, I think a lot of the decisions get a lot easier to make. Yeah. But if you're like, well, the Koch brothers are going to give me $3 million if I say this, the other thing that screws my constituents, but I get the money, then you took the whole consideration for everybody else out of the picture.
Absolutely.
So that's like, for me, that's my hope is like everybody that I talk to and everybody.
And now your decision making is skewed. Now you're not able to make the proper decisions because you're not listening to the right thing.
Right.
You're listening to money.
Right.
You're not listening to people.
Right.
So Sarah, let's come over here to you. What is kind of your history? I know you mentioned Bernie and how that got you involved in politics, but your regular job, your everyday, what do you do?
My regular job. So I actually like to joke about this because I was a biology major. I studied science all through college, and then I worked retail. So I've been in retail literally since I graduated college. I have worked my way up. I'm actually in HR now. So still a little bit, it's kind of the politician of the workplace in a little bit. I have to be very, I'm the moderator a lot of times, and I have to look for the right solution that helps everyone. So it kind of was a natural leeway in that sense, that I've always been someone who's trying to take care of everyone and work for the greater good. So now I'm just kind of taking a leap into a greater stage.
Awesome. So what are some issues and values that are really important to you? What would you say is your number one? Like, mine is sustainability, because I believe that so many things fall under that. You have to have good education or we're not sustainable. You have to have good social justice, good economic justice, social justice, or we're not sustainable. So I always just say sustainability is my big number one issue. What's yours?
Yeah. My instinct is to say equality, but if any Republicans are watching this, I don't want them to take it the wrong way, because any argument we throw at them of, fair wages or any kind of educational argument, the first thing they throw back at us is, oh, you just want to give a handout. Nobody's asking for a handout. They're asking to be on the same playing field. And I think, kind of going along with your sustainability, if we're not starting on the same playing field, if we don't have the same access to education, the same access to fair wages, health care, any of those things, then we can't sustain our society, because we have already, over the last 10 or 20 years, we've experienced this huge gap, the inequality, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, And we can't sustain a nation much longer if that is our trajectory.
Right. It's absolutely true. So, what are you guys gonna do to? Yeah, excellent answer. Excellent answer. So, what are some things that you guys are seeing on the horizon that you're going to try to institute as maybe tools? I don't want you to give away your tool book or your playbook, but what are some things that people should get excited about?
Well, she brought up education, which is, my parents were career educators, so I grew up in that sort of household, and my whole family. Like, everybody's a teacher, counselor, whatever. And education is a huge thing, and I've been hep to the fact I'm learning a lot about my district. And, there are counties and school districts in my district, in Missouri, that are on 4-day school weeks because they can't afford to pay teachers. That is, people in St. Louis don't know that. They're like, really? Yeah, man. I mean, and I'm learning this because I'm talking to people running for House or doing things in these other counties, and they're like, yeah, man, this is a problem because we don't have enough funding for our schools.
Can I go off of that,
Yeah.
which you may or may not have already encountered, but a lot of these districts are even combining what used to be 2 or 3 districts are now
Right.
one.
I've heard that.
And children are being bused from across the county to their school.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of districts that have as much as a 2-hour drive one way to get to school.
How ridiculous is that?
Right.
How ridiculous is that?
And these are in rural
Well,
communities.
what kind of mindset are those children in by the time you said 2 hour one way or 2
One
hour?
way.
2 hours sitting on a bus. What kind of mindset are you in? How can you have that? I know when I was a kid,
You feel like
they always read.
Yeah,
you feel like
that too.
Frankenstein. You feel like going to sleep.
I wouldn't want to be that bus driver either.
I wouldn't want to be the bus driver. I wouldn't want to be the kids. I
Right.
know when I was a kid, you wanted to get up early. You wanted to brush your teeth. Maybe take a shower, wash your face. But then you wanted to have a good breakfast. You wanted to make sure you were as prepared as you could possibly be for that day. And it came down to now they're just like trying to ship them to school like a UPS truck. And that's an issue.
Well, and
that's
I
an
think
issue.
the problem being, I'm assuming, and again, this is something I'm still digging into, because in a way, like there's some state issues, and state issues and federal issues and local issues. With the school funding, it's coming from whether it's property tax and then some state funding that's put in there, and we have not met state funding. They did it last year, the year before, I think 2016. They met the state budget for the first time in a while. They do not want to pay for preschool, so they're like trying to think what the figure was. It was like $25 or $44 million short, or whatever. It's the exact figure of paying for preschool. So the state does not want to pay for preschool. Which what it ends up doing is it leaves the school district short, from that state funding. But I don't know what's going on with that. Like, I don't know personally what the funding issues are, how we can fix it. I do know that having Betsy DeVos in the
That doesn't fix anything.
Right,
Yeah.
is a problem. I've also been hep to the fact that they are pushing charter schools in some of these districts,
Hipped.
even in
Did you just say hipped?
He did.
HEPT. That's HEP.
Oh man, I was hoping you said hipped. I was just gonna brag about
No,
you.
hipped.
I was gonna be like, what other congressional candidate is gonna say I was hipped
No.
to something?
That's even better.
Yeah, I thought you earned points with me. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
You were awarded no points.
No.
And may God have mercy on your soul.
There's no humanity in our policies anymore.
No.
For our government, there's just none. And I think
Is it
that
all
is
because of money though, Derrick?
it's not the money, it's the greed. Isn't that always the story? So that's something that I'm striving to bring in my race is, even if you're on the other side from me and we disagree, I'm not going to come at you with anything except, we disagree, but you're still a person.
Yeah.
I still,
You still want your kids to go to school? Me too.
even if you're not
You
for
know?
me, I'm still for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go work like that. So, I think that is one of the biggest things progressives bring to the table is that humanity. We care about the people we don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good way to
Absolutely
put it.
right. Well put.
And a lot of times the broader issue gets lost. I mean, you're talking about if they don't fund preschools or daycare. Did you say preschool?
Yeah, preschool funding seems to be the
Oh.
stickler on state funding.
But then take that a step further. If these children that parents thought were going to be going to preschool so that they could start going back to work, Now they have to figure out, do I stay home and take care of the kids,
Like
or do
the
I
4-day
find
school week too. What do you do on Friday?
Right. Do I find daycare? Can I afford daycare? How am I supposed to work a job and pay for this?
A phenomenon I've seen a lot of kids bring Brock to work in the last few years where, I don't know what it's like where anyone else works, but, I see that. I don't have a problem with that or anything like that. I'm just bringing their children to work because of lack of child care. Yeah. And,
well, in today's day and age, if
my parents didn't take me to work, didn't have to. I mean, that's not really the point. The point is, I personally am seeing it more and more. And to me, it's another symptom of, even people that are seemingly, considered well off are having a hard time finding
the cost of child care is super expensive. And I have a number of friends, even someone who was one of our case workers in the foster care system. She had her master's, had an administrative position, had earned an administrative position in an agency, suddenly got pregnant. And she had to quit her job as an administrator because they couldn't afford, it was cheaper for her to quit and have the husband work and her take care of the kids than for both of them to work and get daycare for the kids so they could both work. And that I have a number of friends, and I'm a musician, so I have a number of friends whose the wife works, they have a kid, musician takes care of the kid during the day, works part-time at night, whatever. And that's the way they could do it because the cost of that health care is literally like another adult's paycheck.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And the thing is that we have a choice. A lot of people nowadays have a choice. It's either you stay home with your children or you go to work and you pay someone else to stay home with your children.
Right.
Right. We got to fix this, man. We got to fix the system.
There has to be a better way to do that. Because we benefit from...
So what are some better ways?
That's a good question.
And I'm asking you, you're running for Congress.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. Well, in our parents' day and age, there was the one earner breadwinner thing. Yeah. And I've read a few articles recently regarding that, people who kind of tried the breadwinner thing. And the thing, unless that breadwinner makes a lot of money, and our wages historically for a while have been flat. So the people in the bottom and the middle doing this, and the people at the top obviously are just making exponentially more money. And then you have, the issue of cost of living goes up. You know what I'm saying? So that one person can't afford to make enough money to have a house and 2 cars and pay for the kids and whatever. So you really kind of need to have 2 people.
Why did that happen?
Well, partially because the wages of, if you obviously flipping burgers, you're going to have an issue with how much an entry-level job is going to pay. But if you have skilled labor, you have educated, like you talk about, you have, a master's degree-ish or, bachelor
half of
plus
a master's.
You know what I'm saying? But, I mean, you spent some time in school, right? So, you spent that money, and still the job that you can get with even a degree is really not going to be enough.
Yeah. My generation was raised on our parents telling us, get any degree and you can get any job.
Right.
But basically, as soon as we hit high school or college, that wasn't true anymore. So we're already on that path, and we're already up against the ceiling of they're not letting go of those jobs they've already got.
Right.
But we're graduating, and we need something.
And you added to that student loans. So student loans can be $400, $500, $600, $800 a month or more. Then you're like, oh man, that knocked out a week of work right there, paying my student loan. Boom, that was like that. So now I'm getting paid 3 weeks' wages because one of my weeks of wages was covering my student loan for
and two of
years.
those weeks are rent. So now you got 1 week to pay for the rest of everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to get traction. If you had job opportunities where it was kind of going like this, and okay, you have an entry level job. This is 25 or 30 or 35 or whatever it is, depending on the community. Like I lived in Boston for a long time. You can't live on 25 a year in Boston. Mm-hmm. You might
barely
be able to
can anyway.
Right. You know what I mean? That's not very much money, but they're entry level jobs that are college degree jobs where people are getting 25 or 30 a year to start out, and I don't know how you could do that. You'd have to stay with your parents.
It seems like any more bachelor's degree is about the same as a high school diploma used to be.
Yeah.
And, you had to go out and spend how much to get that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not looking for a
Depending on
number, I'm
what-
just
No,
saying,
but I mean-
but the majority of people...
I was trying to think of the
had to
average,
do it-
but it's in the tens of thousands.
Student loan
Right.
style, right. I'm not, and I'm like you. I'm not going to even get into my student loans. They're ridiculous. And I almost feel like we were all instead of, we were all raised, oh, you gotta go to college, like you were saying. We were pushed that narrative, and in retrospect, it's like, were they really just feeding us all to the student loan companies that?
It's kind of what happened. I don't think that was their intention, but
it sure worked out for them. So it didn't work out for us.
Result.
But
so I feel like to the answer of some kind of to fix that, a solution. Most people that let's say you have a job that you're working for a company or a corporation, they're going to have to loosen up some purse strings and start paying people who are higher up on the ladder, so that those people in the middle. And it's funny, you see people fuss about, if you give such and such $15 an hour, blah blah blah. Like, did you think about maybe you're not getting paid enough? Yeah. Did you think about your wages have remained just as flat as a guy flipping burgers?
Well, that's what I would tell people at the doors. They'd be like, wait, you're for a $15 an hour minimum wage. Somebody at McDonald's doesn't deserve $15. I'm like, well, wait a minute.
How much do you deserve?
If minimum wage wage would have stayed indexed with inflation and productivity, we'd be sitting at about $21.74 an hour right now.
Right.
So are you making enough?
And it's funny how heavily that ties in. Herm and I were talking earlier about the media and how people are conditioned to think, I don't deserve to make a living wage. And, I find that sick personally.
I should have 2 or 3 jobs.
I think it's sad that, they have conditioned people in this state, this country, to think
that's the reality.
They don't deserve better than what they have.
When you have CEOs making, 400 times?
I disagree. I think they absolutely deserve better. But
absolutely.
I don't mind people.
That's why we're sitting here.
Rising tides.
Raise all boats.
Yeah.
I don't mind people making money either. It's just when
people make money, everyone makes.
Well, the thing is that the bottom 99%, they spend 110% of every dollar that they get.
Right.
And the top percent, it spends like 3%.
They just hoard it.
Or they just hoard it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The money does not move.
Oh, you mean
what? How are we going to boom the economy?
Trickle down.
And tax cuts. Don't forget tax
cuts.
Has more money. If poor people have more money, they're going to spend more money. If they spend more money, it's going to boom the economy.
Yes.
You don't have to be an economist. You can look like a biker and still know these things.
Well, and why is it they have been pushing this since Reagan and people are still buying it?
Yes, literally.
I mean, I don't
Trickle
know.
down never worked, and it took them time to realize that, but now they still are trying to go back to that same well that already dried up.
Yep.
Because it's an altruistic ideal that they sell to people, but I'm pretty sure that they know that they're going to take all that money and they're going to put it back into their own pockets. Yeah. But people, no,
that's what's happening with the tax breaks right now. Right now, and they're still shipping jobs overseas. Harley Davidson in Kansas City.
I know.
800 jobs?
Gone.
800 jobs gone.
Yep.
Gone. Those
I was really surprised about that.
And what are those workers going to do? What are those workers going to do? Those people are people that probably said people at McDonald's don't deserve $15 an hour, and now they're going to be some of
McDonald's
those people.
making $10 an hour, $8 an hour.
Or go to the Best Buy until it closes because now Amazon's out.
And so, and I think what they did with that Harley Davidson thing is that market is kind of condensing in America, so they're sending that plant, so to speak, to Indonesia or something. Yeah. But there are
same thing they always do.
But something about if they import the motorcycle there, they have to pay 100% tariff. But if they put the parts together there, they don't.
Wow.
I believe that was the story.
So
I'm saying that added thing of they're still going to make motorcycles for a different market, but it's cheaper for them to make the parts here, ship it there, and then put it together and sell it to them instead of making it here.
Well, that's like bananas? Fish. They're sending chicken. It's chicken. They're sending chicken to
Make
China.
Up your mind.
Yeah, make up my mind. I gotta
it was 1984.
My viewers will hold me accountable, and I don't mind that whatsoever.
Tell him in the comments that he was wrong.
Yes, tell me in the comments that I was wrong. But I believe that it was fish, fresh fish, that they are now going to be shipping to China to have it cleaned and processed and ship
back
it
here.
Back to America.
I've heard that.
Chicken.
I think it's chicken.
Chicken, yeah.
No,
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. We have a Google machine over here. If I was Joe Rogan, she would be my Jamie. Well, we do have another guest. Brian, this will be your second time on the show. Let's bring you on in. Bryan Struebig. We're going to put you in the middle of John
And he's still got
Derrick.
his tie and his coat on.
Makes
business.
the rest of us look bad, Brian.
I
Sorry
know.
about that. That's
should
what I
go back to
do.
the car and get mine.
So now we are at a table with 5 candidates. You made it official today. Let's talk about how do you feel?
Excited. Very
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. I mean, expunge, elaborate.
Uh-huh. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to give workers a voice in Missouri.
Tell everybody where you're running in case they
I'm,
didn't see the other
in case you
episode.
didn't see the other episode, I'm running for state senate in the 6th Senate District, which is Miller County, Morgan County, Montauk County, Cole County, Osage County, Marys County. I think I got them all.
I think you did too. So, did you see anybody good over there? I asked Jay Ashcroft to take a picture of me and Chrissy earlier. I didn't even know it was Jay Ashcroft.
Did he?
I don't need to know.
I literally
I don't
walked
need
up
to
to
know
him
who
and
Jay
said, "Why do you
Ashcroft
look
is."
familiar?"
And unless there's some issue going on that I need his help, then I don't really need to know who Jay Ashcroft
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I walked over and asked him to take the picture, and he was fully and completely about to take this picture. And one of the women who were working there runs over and, no, I'll take it. And I thought to myself, he might be a bigwig or something. The way that she ran over and was like, no,
Don't
you don't
touch
have
the
to do
telephone.
anything.
No, they were fighting over who gets to take your picture.
That could
That
be
could
it.
have been.
Yeah,
No.
I'll take his picture.
But then when we left there, Chrissy was like, "Do you know who that was?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Jay Ashcroft. That was Secretary of State." So
He was checking you out.
Can I tell a story?
please do.
So you guys got there much earlier than I did. When I show up, there's this big crowd in front of the door, and I'm walking up, and another man is walking out, and I'm like, "Do you know what's going on over there?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, Josh Hawley is giving an interview, and he's got this big rally going." And this gentleman stops and talks to me for a few minutes, and while he's still talking, the rally wraps up, and Josh Hawley starts walking my way. Like, cameras are still in his face, they're still asking him questions, and he's walking, to his car. And I will forever kick myself for missing this opportunity because I didn't want to interrupt this man who was talking. But Josh Hawley walks literally right in front of me, close enough I could have touched him if I wanted to get arrested today.
You mean tripping?
And the urge was in me to just yell, like, "Vote for Claire," or anything that would come out. But I didn't. I contained myself, and I want everyone to know that I almost fought for you. But
I'm so proud of you that that composure.
But felt just this side of decency
Right.
and allowed the man to finish his own interview.
She was raging internally.
You're
She
taking
was.
the high road.
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
was. So, where did you say you're running in again, Brian?
The 6th Senatorial District.
6th Senatorial District. Derrick is running in.
The 134th Legislative District.
John is running in.
3rd Congressional District of Missouri.
Sarah is running in.
162nd Legislative District.
And I am running in District 107, of course. And we're right here on Next Gen Dems. This is an impromptu episode, ladies and gentlemen. So we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, as I always do. But today is a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit more shooting from the hip, because we're just doing this thing. We set up in a wonderful restaurant, Eris. A pizzeria here in Jefferson City. So come here and check it out. They've got great spin dip. They had a great gyro. I'm not sure exactly what other food they have here, but you can get pizza
Maybe
and all that
pizza,
good
yeah.
stuff. Yes, at a pizzeria.
That would be ironic.
I was surprised they had a great gyro, It's a
Right.
pizzeria.
But
Never-
who goes to a pizzeria and gets a euro?
This
This
guy.
guy.
Yeah.
Fully and completely guilty. But yeah, we're just rocking and rolling right here, and Brian is the newest addition to this particular episode. So tell us a little bit about your issues, a little bit about who you're running against, and all that.
The Republican I will be running against is Birkenstotter. He is currently an incumbent as a state rep, but he is term limited out. I haven't seen who else has filed yet today, so kind of waiting to see how that all goes. The issues I'm really trying to focus on is trying to keep our small communities within the 6th district from just straight out disappearing. We export our biggest resource in the area, which is our youth. 95% of our high school graduates are going to leave our community and never come back.
But that's because a lot of people in that community will tell them, "Don't come back. There's nothing here for you."
Absolutely, and I had to give that same speech to my stepdaughter when she graduated high school last year.
That's a difficult speech to give, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I'm working towards that.
So that's why you're fighting, is to give them something to be able to come back to, something to call home and be proud of.
Absolutely. I have an 11-year-old about to turn 12, and I don't want to have to give him that same speech in a couple of years when he graduates high school.
Yeah.
So our communities are on the cusp of being past the point of no return. I've seen this happen when I worked up in Iowa and Minnesota. When the youth don't come back, the mom and pop stores no longer have customers to keep them up and running. Your school districts, as we've already seen in Marys County, gets consolidated. So kids are taking a much, much longer bus ride, maybe up to 2 hours.
Still can't imagine.
And they're sharing one laptop between two classrooms. They're already down to 4 days a week, which puts an incredible burden on parents that live in the district, especially if you have small children. What do you do? Do you tell your boss, "I'm sorry,
Can't work Friday.
I can only work 4 days a week, because I can't afford to pay for health or for child care
But that's
and
not,
health care too."
that's not exactly correct. It's that the state decides that they can't afford to have public schools on those days.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly on you or your friend, so to speak.
Well, actually, in Marys County, choosing to go to a 4-day school week was an idea that the school board had, and they did go ahead and institute it
To save money, correct?
thinking that they were going to save like $197,000 a year, but it turns out that they were incorrect in that assumption, because even if the kids aren't in school, you still got to heat the place, otherwise your pipes are going to burst in the wintertime. You're still going to have to pay for janitors on the day that they don't have school, because you still have football games, you still have track meets, you still have, all the extracurricular activities that you still have to have.
School's
staff
still
there for.
operating with a skeleton crew, maybe, but they're still operating.
They're still operating, so they're
Right.
not really saving any money whatsoever.
Exactly right. So how did it get that way, and how do we get it back to where it needs to be?
Well, it got that way over a long period of time. A lot of the communities in my district suffered greatly when NAFTA went into effect. They watched a lot of factories and mills.
Signed by a Democrat, you wonder why they got mad at us.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah. When those factories left, it wasn't like there were other businesses or jobs in the area that could absorb that loss like you can sometimes get in St. Louis, Kansas City area. So when the main employer of the town leaves, those that had town
It's
dies.
just that simple.
Yeah, those that had the means to move will move. Those who don't, or are close to retirement or something,
They're going to stay there and dilapidate with the town.
Exactly. And when the businesses go away, when the schools get consolidated down, your local hospitals end up closing, or your local health clinics. They can't even get a nurse practitioner in that area because there isn't a clinic within the mileage range that they require them to have in Missouri. They can't even get a pharmacy in that area because there's not a clinic in that area.
So as a state senator in Missouri's 6th senatorial district, what are you planning on doing to battle some of that?
The first thing we have to do is shore up our small businesses. I overheard you guys talking about the $15 minimum wage. As a tax accountant, I see what the small businesses in the area are making, and right now, honestly, they can't afford to be able to pay that $15 an hour minimum
Right,
wage.
and so my suggestion at the doors when people would bring up that very thing is that instead of giving tax breaks and tax incentives to a company like Walmart, we need to give those tax breaks to the mom and pops that can't make it, and be able to let them pay a better livable wage, and invest in our communities.
Absolutely. Your small mom and pop places, their employees are like family.
Yeah.
They do want to be able to pay them more. but unfortunately we have...
And those people do want to work hard for those people that are paying.
Absolutely, because they know if
like
their business...
That's like an uncle, you know?
Yeah, if their business is making more money, they know that they're going to be able to make more money. I mean, that's when trickle-down actually does work.
Yeah.
But we do have to get rid of some of the regulations that are in the way of small businesses.
Such as
fixing the way that we do workers' comp insurance in Missouri. Workers' comp insurance is handled by usually like one or two insurance companies. There's no competition really in the markets. And I think I mentioned this on the last podcast. A small business will get audited on their workers' comp every single year. And if they happen to have a slightly better year than the year before, then they're going to get dinged for $8,000, $12,000 at the end of the year. When you have to start paying your workers' comp for, the next year. If you don't have that, you can't keep the doors open. If you could help them with that audit process to make it not sting as much, because that $8,000, that $12,000 could go towards a raise for their employees.
How would something like, say, healthcare as a human right, Medicare for all, play into that?
It'd be not so much with workers' comp, but it would free up a lot of money. I myself personally had to pay about $600 a month with a $6,000 deductible and 20% co-insurance after that. That's that eats up almost half of my income, and that's just for myself. That doesn't count my son or anybody else that's living in our household. And that's the same for everybody else that lives in the district. If you did have a Medicare for all system, which I don't think we can necessarily do on the state level, but John can get that done in Congress.
So what do you think about that, John?
Well, I like talking to Bryan, and I appreciate meeting with state people, like Senate and House, because, like I mentioned, the 4-day school stuff and all the funding issues. I hear different issues from different people in different areas, because St. Charles has a different issue than Ferris County. And then I'm in Franklin County. The sheriff of Franklin County just came out last night. They want to build a new jail. So they need $50 million to build a new jail. So in our county, that's an issue. These different issues in spending and whatever, affects people. And, to hear somebody like Bryan, for instance, be able to bring up a specific issue, because I know he's a tax accountant, to say, hey, here's $8,000 of workers' comp insurance that a small business could use. And I've actually worked for a chiropractor in the past. I understand, like, workers' comp cases, there's a lot of money in that. There's, there are a number of, I would say, speaking from a chiropractor, and I can't speak on other industries, but, and I work for a spine surgeon, but lots of workers' comp money flows through that. And usually that is not insurance, there's lawsuits. Am I correct in that? So a lot of the workers' comp stuff is handled, like when I worked for a chiropractor, he literally had a lawyer on retainer, and we would just shovel cases for the workers' comp case. And you get paid like the insurance rate for something, and the insurance rate was like, trying to pry money out of the insurance company. Workers' comp cases, you just take to the lawyer, like, here's 10 grand, here's 20 grand, here's 50 grand, here's 100 grand. There's a lot of money in those workers' comp cases. So I can only imagine what those small businesses are going through if they get a workers' comp case.
Oh yeah, and workers' comp, almost any kind of insurance, it's funny. It's the only product that you will buy where you have to buy a secondary product, i.e. a lawyer, in order to be able to use that product and be able to get the benefit from that. But something that I didn't get a chance to mention, if they do have a good year, they do get, ding, they have to pay that penalty. If they have a less substantial year than they had planned on, because this is all prorated out over the year, they don't get a discount. Their prices aren't going down. It's just a steady increase. So that's one way to be able to help shore up our small businesses. We also need to, like most of my district is very rural. and we need to do something to help shore up the farmers. I was happy that our Republican friends in the state House went ahead and pushed through the bill to get industrial hemp in Missouri again. I think that could be a game changer for a lot of farmers.
Half the battle.
It's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, you get about $120 for a round bale of hemp, as opposed to hay, which you're only getting about $30. You know, I know a lot of farmers that left it in the field because it wasn't worth the diesel fuel to have to go and
move it,
to even cut it and do anything with it.
So explain why this is such a good thing. Well, why is hemp a good thing?
Well, material sciences has come a very, very long way. They are now able to use hemp building the bodies of cars, which is lighter than steel and also stronger than steel in most cases. Obviously.
Wait, has Henry Ford ever built a car?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. We've talked about this. Henry Ford actually had a car that was made. It had steel in it because material sciences weren't there. But back in 1941, he had this car that was made out of hemp. Could be powered by biodiesel made from hemp. That he was touring through the country, and it was picking up steam. And then the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and we got pulled into World War II.
And off that went because all the hemp needed to be used for
the war effort. That'd be used to make uniforms, duffel bags, rope,
And they used to encourage people to make hemp.
Yeah,
there were campaigns. Hemp for America, hemp for freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But another way that I think hemp is also going to help revitalize our rural communities is right now in Missouri, or actually anywhere in the United States, as far as I know, maybe Colorado might have some, but there's no milling facilities to be able to turn the raw material into an actual product.
Wait, are you telling me that this whole industrialized hemp may be able to create jobs?
Absolutely, because it's going to take jobs to be able to build these mills. It'll take jobs to be able to work those mills. Now,
what about cannabis? What about cannabis?
Cannabis, I've had a lot of people that I've talked to that would like to see it legalized in Missouri. I think that's an issue. That should be...
Will that create jobs?
Oh, absolutely.
Will that create revenue?
Oh, a ton of revenue.
Mind blown.
Just look over at Colorado. But I think that is one of those things that should
What's going on in Colorado for a layman who may not know exactly what's happening in Colorado because of the legalization of cannabis?
They actually had a tax holiday last year because they collected more taxes than they anticipated, and they have a constitutional amendment in Colorado that says if you collect more than you expected, you're not allowed to collect any more, where it has to be redistributed. They collected more taxes on cannabis than they did on alcohol or tobacco or firearms throughout the entire state.
And then what they use that to pay for?
They use that to pay for schools. They use that to pay for roads, both things that we need a lot here.
The hell are you saying?
I know.
Yeah.
That was just like a sudden injection of money into the state. So Missouri, you're going to have to start getting on board. John, where do you stand with cannabis legalization?
Well, I hate to say my first off, I've been a musician for 35 years, and I spent a lot of time in bars and venues.
And he's going to be the only one against it. No, I'm just kidding.
And I'm straight edge. I've never been high
he's
or
straight
drunk
edge.
ever in my entire life.
All right.
Nobody has ever punched me in the face when they were high. I say that because there's such a difference, and I think, like even last night when we talked with the sheriff from Franklin County, marijuana is the gateway drug. And I'm like, man, not really.
A glass of milk is the gateway drug if you're an alcoholic.
So I think that the stigma that's been attached to marijuana in general, and obviously the history to people who care, is like more complicated than, it's a horrible drug that kills, and the reefer madness, mindset is like, I have seen people get drunk and act really stupid for 35 years. I've had people, I can name you names and tell you stories about people that I knew that got drunk. I said, man, you're too drunk. They got in their car and ran into a tree and they're dead.
Yeah.
So the fact is that...
You don't hear that when people are on cannabis.
Yeah.
You hear those stories.
No, you just don't. I mean, like, I personally wouldn't smoke weed, but I honestly, I've never been hassled by somebody who was high. I've never been, the one thing I understand is that maybe it's coming in from Mexico or whatever. But if you make it here, and you sell it here, and you tax it here, then
And you're
don't
taking
you
away
cut
that
off?
drug trade, that illegal
Right.
drug trade. You're taking away the blood money.
Isn't it
that is
right? That's what
involved.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't need a wall in that respect because it's legalized and it's coming here. And if the worst thing is that you have a natural product that you can get so many other benefits from, and like I said, the farmers and you're the was $130.
$120 for a bale. Average acre is going to bring about a little over $12,000 just for the seed that you're able to pull out of it, because there's a big market for seed as well.
Yeah, the benefits so far outweigh the possible downside that it's
And
like
the oil that comes from
The oil that comes from it, it's already legal in Missouri to use the oil for seizures and children. They have been utilizing it in other states to help patients with Parkinson's. They'll throw a couple drops, and this has no THC in it, or 0.03%, as opposed to regular marijuana, which is I think it's like a 20% THC level, which is the part that makes you feel high and happy and everything.
Well, I mean, if they did it here like they do in California, it would actually have a listing to tell you the exact percentages of what is in the product.
so it'd
that
be
you're
regulated.
taking.
Yeah.
Basically,
Absolutely.
it's like getting your
Absolutely, yeah.
nutrition information. And,
Yeah, I said on my last episode that my wife and I went into one of the dispensaries when we were at the DNC meeting in Las Vegas, and sophisticated is the big word that comes to mind, because you walk in, you hand an ID, they scan your ID, you walk over, there's a menu board, a lit menu board, looking very professional, looking upscale. You decide what you want, you go in through the room, well, you can decide what you want there, and just go get it, or you can go into another room, and then you can look at their product. They have little things on the table with magnifying glasses on the top
Wow.
of them. You can look really closely at it, and it gives you a layout of exactly what's in that product. You can do edibles, oils, the flowers, and then you're able to leave. You buy your product, and off you go. And they actually have the Uber. You can scan a QR code and get you an Uber from right there. But in Las Vegas, it's only you can only use any type of product like that in your own domicile. So it has to be private property. It has to be like in someone's apartment that lives there.
And I think the
there's
overarching
not a whole lot of tourism going on, I don't think, because you've got to know people there. And
the
if you're
elephant
just
in the
going
room
out.
is it being socially acceptable and legal. Because what I'm saying, like that's the hurdle is not the practicalities of it. The hurdles are, is it socially acceptable?
Well,
I think that there's a lot of social acceptability that's going on with it now.
I
because
agree.
It's become more popularized. Let me touch on, before we continue, how it is in Washington, D.C., and I've only heard so far, but they don't actually sell it in Washington, D.C. It's legal, but they don't actually sell it. So you call up companies, and these companies sell shirts and hats and bags, and then they give you a free gift. And that free gift just happens to be that product, cannabis. So
I think, really, as long as the old drug warriors are still around, you're going to have the war on weed, because that's their most useful tool in the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yes, frankly,
what
which is-
usefulness
it's all BS.
does it really have nowadays? I think
Well,
it's
it
all-
doesn't, but I mean, they still like to. That's why they won't just go all the way and just legalize it already.
Well,
they can do
there's
it so easily at the federal level.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
They just
But
won't.
They just don't.
We need to study more. They always have
There's
some
exactly.
Pharmaceutical
bullshit
companies
reason.
are
Yep.
going to lose a lot of money from people.
Well,
who-
yeah,
who
and
are
that's
self-treating.
also is another reason they've gone after him. I mean, they made it legal in the first place because it was getting into DuPont and Hearst timber and paper interests. It didn't have anything to do with drugs, and they made up the bullshit. Mexicans and jazz guys like it. Oh, scary. And
Those jazz guys.
yeah, I know.
Guys.
I know, isn't that
And-
funny?
It's the gateway sound.
Yeah, right.
They did Reefer Madness, and now it's a comedy.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
they just will
And
not.
they
They've
were really
used it for
serious.
so long, and it's been so effective. I mean, they're not going to give it up without a fight, which is what we're seeing. But I think it's inevitable. I mean, I really do. It's just, you know, like so many other things. Can we just do it already? No, we got to have.
Well,
this
and
have
not
to,
not
the
only that,
pharmaceutical industry,
you
right.
could go well. You also have the private prisons, and you know, there's a lot of money that's being, you know, that they would lose out on, you know, if marijuana was legalized.
Explain how and why.
Well, I mean, you go to jail. You got to pay your bond. You got to, you know, so bondsman's going to lose out on money. The court system is going to lose out on money. If you get shipped off to a private prison, you know, they're making money off of the commissary. They're making money off of you trying to make phone calls. And it's ridiculous. There's a huge list of things that, you know, it
It goes
costs
even
prisoners.
deeper than that. They're just judges that are making money by putting more people in prison.
Oh, yeah.
And now being busted. So people can't say that that's not happening because there's judges that are actually going to prison for doing that.
Yeah.
For
money in politics.
I'm going to jump in because I've been holding my tongue this
Do
whole
it.
time.
Go ahead.
I'm
You
gonna-
talk-
ever.
Yeah, don't.
This is Next Gen
I'm
Tips.
going to say the word that you've all kind of touched on it, but nobody's saying it, is the history of the war on drugs, the war on cannabis, is a racist history.
Yeah,
They-
it is.
I mean, the plant is called cannabis. They invented the word marijuana to make Mexicans seem like the enemy. Like, oh, they're shipping in this drug, they're affecting our
Dangerous,
youth.
evil word.
They completely created this persona of the dangerous Mexican that, shockingly, or maybe not shockingly, is still being perpetuated by
The wall.
by our usurper.
Build the wall.
But yeah, prisons. We've got this school to prison pipeline where they are targeting neighborhoods that are predominantly Hispanic and black. And they, instead of getting a chance at education and going on to college, getting a good job, they are falling into this trap of, it's so much easier to sell this drug, I'll get better money, and maybe I can make something of myself. But before they can make something of themselves, they get arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our prisons that they're still building more and more of, all of our predominantly men and predominantly Hispanic and black men are being shipped to prison. And then they get to prison and they're not even being fed, they're not getting air conditioning. I'm
And
ranting
what's
now.
happening? You know,
No, it's
please
a good
rant,
rant.
because
Good rant.
what's happening to the people who are left on the outside when they're in this incarceration?
Exactly, they're struggling. You know, whoever is left behind, whether it's parents, a wife, kids, whoever, they very likely are someone who, obviously in the beginning, didn't have the means to have a good job, or the person who was arrested wouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. So now, you know, let's say it was a wife with a kid, and you know she's struggling now to pay the bills on her own and take care of this kid who she probably can't afford childcare, and she's got 4 days of school, and she's got 3 days a week that she's got to figure out what she's doing. It's an endless cycle
And
that
she's
you
got to work
can't.
2 jobs because the rent's
At
outrageous.
least 2 jobs, yeah.
At least 2 jobs.
For
So now the
outrageous
parents
rent
are
in
not
a
in
building
the
that's falling
household.
apart around her.
So now neither one of the parents are in the household. One's in jail, one's having to work multiple jobs.
And guess what happens to the kid?
What happens to the kid?
They think, well, I've got to find a way to make money. Oh, this guy down the street said if I peddle this drug for him, he'll pay me.
And then the vicious cycle continues.
Yep.
And that's going to continue until we break the cycle. We've got to break the cycle, ladies and gentlemen. We have to unrig the system, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with Next Gen Dems, with these fine candidates right here, trying to come up and amplify your voice and amplify your message and fight back, because nobody's been fighting for people like us. Nobody's been fighting for people like you. If you're watching this show, most likely, nobody's been fighting for people like you, and nobody's been making your voice count. And that's what we're here for. We're here to make your voice count, to make your vote matter. And we're going to keep doing that on
So
Next Gen
we
Dems.
just got done talking about you know, what we know the problems are around, or that, you know, the war on drugs has created and everything. Why don't we look at I call it uncheck the box, or get rid of the box that requires you to have to put down whether or not you've been convicted of a felony before,
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
or some
Yep.
sort of drug offense. As a small business owner, whenever we're looking for laborers and stuff like that for our tile business, Usually the best workers that we find in our area, honestly, come from the probation and parole office because they've been to jail, they've been to prison. They have no desire to go back there, and they just need someone that's willing to give them a chance. They work very hard. They show up every single day. They may not have, we've helped some guys out get some clothes, get some tools, work with them in order to, build their life back up so that they don't have to go caught back into the cycle.
And sorry, were you?
No.
The reverse of that, if someone isn't there to give them that opportunity, then they're struggling to get by. They have no idea how to live on the outside. So a lot of people end up intentionally trying to get back in just because prison is the only thing they know anymore, which then perpetuates us having to pay for prisons to stay open and pay to feed our inmates.
And it's
Again,
so
it's
interesting
endless
you
cycle.
bring those subjects up because I literally just had this conversation last night. And literally people were I was kind of the first one to start asking these kind of questions, and it sort of snowballed from there. But these are the questions people were asking. How do we keep them out of jail? What do we do? He said, well, recidivism. Well, my recidivism rate is 70% or whatever.
Well, we stopped passing so many laws to put them in jail.
Well,
We're taking moms and dads out of the households and expecting the kids to raise themselves and not understanding why we're not getting good results.
Right. Well, an interesting thing is that I've noticed because, we live close to the city, but yet we live in the country, and then, this whole area from where I lived out here in Jeff City is country. There are a lot of problems that you have in the city that are reflected also in the country. You have people who have a lack of opportunity. You have kids who are left, messed up. The drug thing is a big problem. Heroin's a huge problem. I again had that conversation last night. Their sort of guesstimate is that a very good number of the people who they're taking into custody are there as a result of drug offenses or as a result of a drug habit. I said, so what are you doing for those people? Well, they can call somebody. They're adults, and that's their decision that they make. And I'm like, but how's that going to, but it's that we see those issues in the city. We see those issues out here, not here, but in the country where you have a lack of access. You have kids who are, like you said, left at home. I don't know, is there an issue with kids not even going to school because it's difficult to get there?
In the rural areas, I wouldn't say it's necessarily an issue for them to get to school. It's more of an issue once they turn 16, 17 years old to actually, to stay in school, because, dad might be in jail or mom's in jail, and I have to drop out in order to get a job so I can feed the rest of the kids in the family.
Or by that point in their
Well,
life.
that was my situation, actually. I dropped out and got my GED because I had to help raise my 2-year-old sister.
Yeah.
Because I was in a situation, ended up in a situation, it wasn't always like that, ended up in a situation where both parents needed to work. And it used to be one parent had to work. And I was kind of there during that transition, and then it went downhill to the point where I had to come out of school and help raise my sister.
Yeah.
And I did go back for my GED, but I know that happened. And I know that I can sympathize and have empathy for somebody who's in that same position because I was there.
So one of my question is, I talked about...
You're not the host, I'm the one doing
No, but, right. But one of my question is, because,
Can you check our frame over there, Chrissy, please? Battery life?
Because you've asked, about solutions, he's got some stuff he asked me to. We talked about solutions. And I think about in the you're in St. Charles, and I... Are you saying that? I just didn't want to block out Brian.
His disembodied voice is telling us
It's
something.
probably better that way. I'm curious because, I'm kind of, we're in Franklin County, but we're close to the county, and he's all the way over on this other side. You're way down there. What?
Way down there.
Well, what I'm saying is you're in. There's some cities down there, but we're talking about in the rural areas. What cannabis? You're talking about like hemp. In exploring my district. In a lot of these towns, there's a Dollar General and there's a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where are
Maybe
people?
a Walmart.
Well, not in the town, no.
Not if it's
There's
Dollar
not.
General.
Like into NAFTA, which we were talking about earlier. It's all...
So
In
where?
a lot of these rural towns, the Dollar General is the Walmart.
That's what I'm noticing. So so where can these people? So let's say I'm 16 or I'm 18 or I'm 20. Let's say I don't want to go to college. Let's just say I want to get a job. If I'm 16, 18, 20 years old and I live in Marys County, or I don't want to pick out a particular county, but some of these rural areas, because they're all like they're south, north, whatever, where can I go get a job? I've met people like over in Warrenton that lived in Jeffco. They got a job in Warrenton because it paid more than working in Jeffco. And I'm thinking, dude, you're driving like an hour and a half or something to work at a gas station.
I've known several people, if you're not
High-speed
familiar.
rail.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Southwest Missouri, Springfield is about hour 15 minutes away from Joplin. I've known several people who live in one town and travel to the other every day of the week for work.
Oh, I know people who drive farther than that even. And
I'd just like to say it's
crazy.
not that far when you drive the way I do. It doesn't take nearly that long.
you stay up there.
Right. Stay off the roads with Curtis.
Huh? Oh, I didn't say, you caught me off guard with your witty comment. It's like trying to figure out how to make you stay up there.
Build a wall.
If you ever get stumped, just throw out your website. WildForThePeople.com.
We're talking about what do we do for kids, and I mean
What?
especially in small communities.
Yeah, Dollar General gas station. Then
and like I said,
what?
it really just it keeps coming back to money and politics. The people, they buy the lawmakers and write the rules they want to. It allows businesses to go out of the community. It allows the war on drugs to be run like it was. I mean, that's all. It was always a class war. I don't care what they call it. It was always a class war. And we're talking about I mean, I can't even believe what I'm hearing as far as people getting bused 2 hours one way or another to go to school.
Yeah.
That's just treating people like freight. I've had an argument with the anti-tax crowd for a while on education, and it really is, would you rather pay taxes to educate your neighbor's kid, or would you rather pay taxes to take care of that neighbor's kid when he's in prison? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't educate him.
And they were talking about
And there's really not much in between these days.
right.
And
the cost of prison's expensive.
And
They're
and I mean, if you don't want to have humanity about it, then look at it in cold, dollars and cents. It's still cheaper to educate that child and take care of
'cause
them
then you
than
get
it is to deal with them
productivity
when they're
afterward.
a dysfunctional adult.
They're
So-
paying taxes instead of eating taxes.
And frankly, there's a lot of people in prison that aren't dysfunction, that were victims of the drug war,
Right.
things like that. Another tangent for another conversation. Reagan deinstitutionalized all the mental patients back in the 80s, which is another reason our prison population is so huge. It gets into the gun control arguments that we're having right now, but that could be another 2-hour conversation. It's not on a tangent.
But
So-
before we go off onto that tangent, because it's a good tangent, it's one that needs to be addressed. There is a way that rural communities can kind of rebound also, but it goes back into education, and we've got to stop stigmatizing that vocational work is a bad
Absolutely.
thing. I'm a third generation floor layer. My grandfather did it, my father did it, I do it. I get to do some really, really neat stuff. If you check me out on Facebook, sometimes I'll post pictures of some of the showers and stuff
I
that
saw
I
a
do.
shower you did recently,
I know.
and I could just camp out in there.
Yeah, I know. If I had an extra bedroom, I'd be like, could you put a shower in there?
We
Just
just
a cot under the counter.
Right.
That'd be good.
I've done all kinds of crazy things as far as designing some of the showers. But if you
I need a
teach,
bathtub that has a TV ceiling
Right
mounted.
up there.
I've done that. I've done a steam shower where
I'm jealous.
we built it had mood lighting and everything. Had a recessed TV behind a glass panel.
I need
and
mood lighting. I'm always in a good mood.
Well, they also had a built-in stone bench that, if you open it up, also doubled as a cooler too.
Ooh, that's
So they could just sit in there and drink beer and just have a great
You
time.
should check out his Facebook page.
I've
He's
seen
got a
these.
lot
I've
of
seen
cool
them.
stuff he does.
I'm
Speaking
jealous.
of, while we're here, plug your Facebook page, plug your website.
Struebig for State Senate is my Facebook page.
Spelled Struebig.
STRUE, B as in boy, I, G as in girl.
That's right. That's right. Let's come over here, Sarah.
I don't actually have a website yet. I literally just officially decided and announced 2 days ago. So I will tell Curtis as soon as I have a website, and he will plug it for me then.
Of course.
Yay!
But you can check her out. Your name.
Yeah,
Facebook?
find me on Facebook. I'm Sarah Hinkle.
Spell that.
SARAH space HINKLE.
That's right. We already got his. What's your website, Jen?
JohnKiehne.com. That's JohnKiehne.com. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
I think he's got some
DJ voice
voiceover.
now.
What do you think?
That's John Kiehne for 3.
Next for the one.
That'd be called a bumper on the radio.
But the kids that are going to remain behind in these small towns and everything, those are the jobs that are available. Learning to be an electrician, learning to be a plumber, learning to be a floor layer, carpenter. Those are jobs that are, they're not going to go away. They're not going to get automated out of existence. If you're lucky enough.
There's always going to be a person like you who's going to do a better job than a machine that may be able to do something
absolutely.
similar.
Until we get the robots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
robot.
Well, and a machine can't think of a cooler and a Sky TV and whatever you just described.
Yeah,
to
that's
us.
true. That's true.
But like I said, those are the jobs that are available right now in the area. It's also the quickest way for you to become your own business owner, to be an entrepreneur. That's something else that we need to change in education. For so long, the education system has been geared towards essentially creating factory workers. Go out, you're going to get a job, you're going to go work for somebody. We need to start emphasizing being an entrepreneur. If you're not making money as an entrepreneur, the only person you had to blame is yourself. Exactly. And it's not easy work.
No, that's a grind. I say
it
all
is a
the
grind.
time, rise and grind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the other thing, there's a sense of, because the three of us, I don't know about you all, but the three of us do that. Like, you have your own business, you have your own business, I have my own business.
And we are our own brand.
Yeah, and it does take a lot of work. And
Oh,
it is like you wake
absolutely.
up, but I can't imagine working for somebody else.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's the whole reason I still do what I
Yeah.
do, because I don't want to have to go necessarily
Yeah.
go punch the clock or something like
Right.
that. I have a little bit more freedom.
Some of my friends see me nowadays, and they're like, you don't have to go anywhere through the week, like Monday through Friday. You don't have to.
Right.
You have your appointments, and you schedule it when you want to, and they don't understand that it's a lot of hard work to not have to work for anybody else.
Yes.
And then there's also that other dynamic to where it's not that you're not working for anybody else. It's that you got a different client every weekend,
Yep.
or every other
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
constantly posting views of of the office of the day,
Right.
which is changing from every 2 or 3 days. I'm at a different job site.
So you don't have anybody that calls the shots for you, but you've got a lot of people that are in charge of what they want you to do.
Absolutely, you will. Everyone works for somebody. It does not matter.
Right.
You're not going to be to.
We have clients.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have clients.
Right.
The all-encompassing thing is that right now we have a system where people are working because they have to. I think we need to devise a system where we free people to work because they want to.
Yeah.
Free people to work at the things that they want to.
Well,
at their
think
interest.
about what the ACA did. That one of the good things that did is it unleashed people from, the monotonous job that they didn't like,
For
that they didn't
benefits.
want, yeah,
Yeah.
so that they could
They
have
weren't
health care.
forced into that slavery system, regardless if you want to call it that. They weren't forced into that slavery system, or they were forced into that slavery system, and Obamacare freed them of that because you didn't have to stay locked into an employer to still be able to have your benefits.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we definitely need more of that.
Yeah, but you need to be able to start teaching that in the schools, because it is scary going out on your own and starting your own business. I mean, if you fail, there's serious repercussions. You can lose the house, lose the car, so on and so forth. But if you allow kids to learn how to do that while they're in school, while they're still, I hate using this word, safe space.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But they are in a safe place where they can fail.
I'm
because
gonna
you
say
need to
they
learn how.
should be in a safe place.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah,
That's up
yes,
for debate right
yes,
now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But if you provide that environment, then they learn the coping mechanisms in order to deal with failure. It drives me nuts. I know a lot of people aren't going to necessarily like this statement, but I don't like the idea of everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
Because that does not set you up for what you're going to have to deal with out here in the shit world that we necessarily live in.
And it's amazing how many conservatives will defend Donald Trump's win and tell you that second place shouldn't get a trophy.
When he literally got
a
the second
little
place vote.
hypocritical.
Got the second
Yeah,
place.
no, right.
He lost the election.
Right.
He lost the popular
Right.
vote and was still seated in the White House.
Right.
Yeah.
Second Republican president in my lifetime that
Mine too.
happened.
Yeah.
That they gave the trophy to the second place person.
Yeah, but I run into this when we're trying to hire on younger people in our jobs that don't know how to deal with being told no, being potentially failing, potentially screwing something up. Learn how to deal with the problems while you're young and in an area where the repercussions aren't as bad. And start
to take risks early.
Yeah, and don't necessarily have to teach by the book, because in construction, nothing is ever like it's shown in the book. No floor is perfectly flat, no wall is perfectly straight, or anything else like that. You need to learn how to deal with the problems that you're going to face in life and in work, because that's what's going to separate you from your competition, is being able to handle those problems and being able to get the job done still on budget.
Being able to come up with solutions. In the
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah,
And
because
worst case scenario, it still makes you a better employee.
Yeah.
Like even if you end up working for somebody else, you're so much better of an employee from
Yeah.
that.
Well, and we need a different mindset in our schools. They're set up to teach kids that you need to try to get that A, and you need to pass this test, and you need to pass the standardized testing. Like schools need to be
test.
right, and schools need to be teaching that it's not about your grades. Like it's about the process and what you learn, how you learn to work and adapt and.
yeah,
Right, and find who you
Critical
are.
thinking.
You may not be the math student or the science student or the athlete. Find who you are, and work with that.
yeah, absolutely.
God bless you. Don't be an art student or a musician in this day and time.
That's a nice
That's
tie-in
what
to
I
him
think we need to
talking about the
cultivate.
Yeah.
That's what I think we
vocational
need to
schools, too.
cultivate.
Yeah.
The arts,
Yeah.
man, because they're trying to do away with the arts, and they just want you to teach you to test. They just want you to be able to know a certain amount of things and memorize those things.
Yeah.
And then you're good enough in their eyes. But the fact is that they're wasting a lot of time on subjects that may not be a passion subject to a lot of kids. And those same kids could be Einstein if we start figuring out what they were passionate about and cultivating that
Yep.
inside them.
Yep.
So we have to grow these children along the path that they choose. Along the path, we're homeschooling our daughter. Firmly and completely believe in public education. I think that Missouri's legislature is not doing the best job that they could for our public education, for our educators and our students.
Maybe
but
Betsy DeVos can say it.
when I'm able to get in there and make a few changes and we can do a better job at that, maybe we'll bring Phoenix into a public school situation. Right now she is homeschooling, and most days we make it her idea. What does she want to learn? Does she want to learn math? Does she want to learn science? Does she want to learn English? And then we cultivate that. Hey, you decided that you wanted to do this today. You made this decision, so this is the road that we're going down today. And she is so bright. Every parent wants to say that their kid is a genius. My kid is getting to be smarter than me, and she's 5.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But you're also dedicated to educating your child and nurturing your child. I think that goes to, we're talking about, like, one parent working, 2 parents working. The schools end up being more a daycare than a school. And you have parents who do have to work, and like maybe they're working 2.5 jobs or 3 between them. And so even after school stuff, it's like, well, yeah, I can't go to the football game, or I can't do that, or if you do this activity, I can't get involved. And we know that our kids being involved, they bring, our niece that we raised, she went to Eureka, which is Rockwood schools, and she'd have like an hour and a half, 2 hours of homework a night. Typically, she did Spanish and history and science, all that stuff. But we would bring it home, and we would always try to kind of like, hey, do you need help with that? What are you doing? Blah blah blah. Even though you're busy, try to make time for the kids. And we had her do clubs. She did sports. She did some varsity sports, and I just say it because we didn't say you have to do this thing. We said you have to do something. You have to get involved in stuff, and we want to nurture all those different interests. But it took extra effort on our part. You know, we had to work and pay the rent and to keep a house and go, okay, this child needs this and she needs to go to school, but we also need to go to the school meetings. You know, we need to go to teachers' meetings and go, hey, you know, what's going on? How's she doing? What is she, you know, the advent of email with teachers has been awesome, and the online grades and stuff.
Being present is something that is direly missing for our youth.
Yeah.
But the problem,
but it helps, you know what I'm saying?
the problem is a lot of parents don't even have the means to do that. They can have the best intentions, but most of our rural communities don't even have broadband access. So if their teacher has email, that means nothing to them.
Yep, you're right.
There's so many free materials on there to help them teach their kids, but they can't access them because even their phone can't get online.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How can we expect an educated voter base if we can't even get an educated elementary level for our society?
Or access to, you know,
to information.
Right.
You know, what are we doing?
Well, and again,
when other countries are doing a better job,
you're in St. Charles, and I'm in.
We're supposed to be the greatest country on the planet, right?
Well, I agree.
So how come they're not broadband internet going to every? Look at Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga, Tennessee has fiber optic in their town, and you can either get the charter or whatever their local thing is, or you can get the city fiber optic. It's just like paying trash. It's just like paying water, and it's a whole lot less expensive because of that.
But see, here's the thing.
But if you tell that to a Republican, that's socialism.
Well, but you live in St. Charles, and I mean, we've been in a rural community.
I live in O'Fallon.
Right, but I'm saying you live in an area that's suburban. You know what I'm saying? And I think people, us being by St. Louis or by Kansas City or whatever, or in a city, we don't realize that when you drive out maybe 30 minutes from your house all the way to the middle of the state, there are people that don't have access to the internet. Like, that was really news to me. I mean, we don't have, well, it was news to me until 4 years ago when I moved to Franklin County, and I go, what do you mean we don't have access to the internet? Well, for $15,000, we'll run it to your house. and we're like, oh, hell no.
So solutions. Let's talk about solutions. How do we
I'm
get
a big
access?
fan of the New Deal, and I think we need a rural broadband project like they did rural electrification. Yeah.
But who's going to pay for it? Because there's no, and I'm saying this is being rhetorical.
Well, we just gave $1.4 trillion to the billionaires and multinationals.
Yeah, so
but they need that.
But
they need that.
So, you know.
But here's my thing. Is like,
Did you just say they need that?
Of course they need
You're
that.
off my podcast.
They're going broke. They can barely afford to eat.
Oh yeah,
you didn't know that?
$100,000 a plate caviar.
I know, man.
Yeah.
But here's like, again, I'm running in rural districts. Like, you have 300.
Well, my daughter's eating peanut butter crackers. I'm just saying.
There's like 300, there's like 350,000 people or so in St. Charles County. I don't know. It's like up there, like quite a few people.
My
some of these,
district is 32.
Yeah, some of these counties have 40,000 people.
Yeah,
you know, there's so fewer people like in these counties. I don't know where the money is going, because already it's the city money going to the smaller communities.
Well, if
so where's the money going nationally though?
In Montauk County, they have Como Connect over there, which goes up, I do believe, up into Cooper County, and it's made its way down to the Lake of the Ozarks area, at least on the west side of the lake, where it's an electrical co-op, which means it's owned by all the people that live in the district. They made the conscious decision to, the main fiber optic lines are already laid through most of the country, actually. That went through as part of the shovel-ready jobs during the Obama administration. The problem is
A Republican will tell you there was no shovel-ready jobs.
There's always shovel-ready jobs.
Yeah.
Always shovel-ready jobs.
But the lines are already there, but there has to be the will of the company that's in the area, a utility company, to be willing to take it the next step, to be able to bring the line from the road to the house.
So why does it have to be a utility company? Why can't we take the power out of their hands and make it a public works issue?
quite honestly, I don't know where it gets back into money. I think.
Strangely, well, and I mean, not devil's advocate, but I mean, it's literally like in my profession. Rural area, let's say the local entity decides to run water and sewer down the road. The property owner is still going to have to pay for the service off of that main up to their house. So, I mean, really, that's kind of the corollary. Now on the other side of that, I think, back in town, city utilities we're at, and I'm sure that's pretty common, they're responsible from the pole to your service connection, and then once it gets inside the building, you're responsible for everything else. And I really think that would be the model that we would want to do, hook people up to, because, a lot of people, they're going to have the wherewithal or the money to pay someone to come out and trench fiber optic cable up to their house. And then they have the additional expense of making that work once it's inside their house.
And the utility companies already have the equipment. They have the manpower. They have the know-withal to be able to do that.
When they've already run lines.
I see it kind of like, at the dawn of, when people did start having indoor plumbing or electricity. At first it was, this is a neat new technology. It's become so ubiquitous. It is required to get a certificate of occupancy for a building that you have electricity, that you have water, that you have all these basic things that 100 years ago were considered luxuries. They were not regulated. They were not required. And I think we need to get there with the internet. The internet's a way of life. We got to have it. So.
Yeah, and that also goes back into some of the rural areas where, in the Springfield area, in the Joplin area, in the St. Louis area, you guys have planning and zoning. You get out into a lot of these rural counties, they don't have planning and they have no planning and zoning whatsoever. So there's no requirements if you've got a lot and you're going to put a trailer on it or something like that. There's no requirement that you have electricity run or water.
And that's where the commercial farms are moving in, right?
Absolutely. Well, and if going back to, we're losing our rural communities, the average age of a farmer is 56 right now, and their kids aren't necessarily coming back to run the farm. So what happens when mom and dad pass away? They're going to take that farm and they're going to sell it off to the highest bidder, which is probably going to be a big factory farm, because they're going to be able to buy the property up, essentially dirt cheap. Otherwise, you're going to be able to rent it out for, say, pasture land, but you're going to get about $1,200 a year if you're lucky per acre. It's not much that you get to rent that property out.
And then you're paying taxes and what have you on as well, and maintenance.
Yeah.
It ends up like on our farm. My dad we have 108 acres, and I think 100 of it, probably 80 of it is used. It's not very much money. 100 acres is like delivering papers. Money.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're farming too. Yeah. I mean, if you're farming any kind of grain, then you need at least 1,000 acres in order to make it worth it.
Wait, are you guys farming hay or hemp? Because I just heard $120 a bushel.
that does. Well, my dad.
Well,
that
makes a smaller. Yeah, that makes a smaller farm. More profitable. You might. At our farm, my family farm, we only have about 38 acres that's actually farmable. We run cattle on that land, except for one spot that that's just our hay field. And I can turn that into a hemp farm real easy. And, something we didn't get a chance to hit on.
So are you gonna? I'm putting you on the table right now.
I would love to have the opportunity to do it. But right now we don't have the opportunity. Also, getting back to the fact that we don't have the mills or anything in this area, all the mills, in fact, all the hemp that's produced that everyone in the United States is consuming right now comes from either Canada, which is not that much, or it all comes from China. That would be able to steal jobs back from China. And we got a whole lot more farmland here that we could use, provided we stop letting the Chinese buy up our farmland here in Missouri, as they have done all throughout northern Missouri. Smithfield,
which is absolutely ridiculous.
Smithfield Farms, which is one of the top to pork producers in the country is Chinese owned. And what they've been able to do is when you put up a pork barn or a poultry barn, the farmer, the landowner is on the hook for the loan for building the barn, maintaining the barns. They're given the sows or the chicks. In Miller County, we got a lot of turkey farms. They're given the chicks, they're given the feed by the company, but they don't have any control over the quality of the feed or the quality of the birds. So if the company decides they really just want that property, they will give them substandard birds. They will give them substandard feed. And they're paid on quality of the bird and weight of the bird. So if you're already put behind the eight ball by the company, you can't say anything in public because we've passed laws that have essentially put gag orders on the farmers.
Wait, are you telling me that they have chicken privilege?
Something like that.
Hog privilege?
Yeah, they're not allowed to.
Say right.
I know.
It's just not right.
They're not allowed to speak up or say anything. I've talked to several farmers that we'd like to have a voice, but we can't. I mean, it could be the end of our farm if we do. So they're not getting paid as much for the bird or the hog. They're going to get behind on the loan payments because they took out substantial loans in order to build these turkey barns or hog barns. And at that point, when you can't pay your mortgage anymore, it goes up for sale on the courthouse steps. And who's there? Smithfield is there to be able to buy it dirt cheap at
Pennies
auction.
on the dollar.
Yeah,
Pennies on the dollar.
Pennies on the dollar. And now that farmland is owned by the country of China. And we could actually see that potentially happen through my district because Cargill is king in my district.
And if the people at the very top now have their way, they're going to keep selling off to China and or other
whoever,
countries
yeah.
or other countries. Yeah. And before you know it, America is not going to be America anymore, even if it is currently a shell of what it used to be.
And Cargill has already sold off they've already sold off their pork division. It's now been sold to JDS.
So how do we
pork,
get that
which is in
land back?
Brazil.
Say we want to buy that land back. How do we get that land back?
Honestly, we need to get rid of that stupid right to farm bill that was passed by Missouri voters, unfortunately, because they used great marketing again. Messaging was key. They've tried to do the same thing with the right to work
because they tried to make people actually believe that right to farm meant that you have a right to farm. You've always had a right to farm. You've always had a right to work. The bill that they're trying to run through, the bill that they already passed, that we're having to fight and we're having to turn over, Proposition A, which we're going to vote on November 6th, 2018. Same time that I'm on the ballot, you're on the ballot. Anybody here have a special election? No? Then I think these two guys are on the ballot. You got a primary?
Yes, August 7th.
August 7th.
I may have a primary August 7th, too. I don't know if I'm going to have a competitor or not. I haven't had time to look.
Hey, they got until March 27th to sign up. There are still seats available. I want every Republican to have opposition. So get out there and run for office. If you see a seat that's not available, run for office. Don't just march.
Like 161 and 160, we need you.
161, 160. I hear that 63, there may be some rumblings. My area is starting to get a little more secure, but I think we need 2 or 3. So look after today, see the offices that are still available on the Secretary of State website. I'm sure that you'll be able to search that. And if there's a district that is available that you live in, run for office. And
if you have any questions, get a hold of us.
And if you have any questions, get a hold of anybody
Curtis,
at this table.
Brian, me, anybody, reach out. Somebody will tell you.
you remember Tal.
Derek's
also
like, don't get a hold of me.
Well, I'll point you in the right direction. The Missouri Democratic Progressive Caucus, we have a Facebook page as well, and one of the members has posted a very useful map that is also speaking to what you are, it's showing all the open seats.
Yeah.
So if you want to go look it up there as well, that's a good place to go.
And I think I'll make it a point to share that on the Next Gen Dems page for anybody that may be
that
listening.
map,
Yes.
that town map, yes,
Yeah,
it's excellent.
Hopefully it's a little updated because
I
I
was
do
going to
believe
say, because
from
he
that
had
map.
my district's taken now. He
Yes.
needs to update that.
Yes. So after probably March 27th,
I'm sure he'll
probably
update
go
it.
back onto
He'll
that map.
update it.
But then it's going to be too late. So we need to kind of knock it out as it's coming.
Yeah, I'd say
Before
like
March
a week
27th,
or
got a month.
we need to make sure that we run for every seat. And everybody that runs for a seat, you need to knock every door 3 times.
And honestly, even if
I'm going with
even if
Bryan,
you don't
actually.
have if you don't have time to be able to run a campaign or anything, just put your name on the ballot.
Yeah.
Get your name on the ballot because it as I've seen in so many of the rural areas, including mine, how long do you have to be forced to just have a Republican option as your only option before you start to consider yourself, well, I guess I'm a Republican because I've never had a Democrat to be able to
Right.
exactly
vote
right.
for. And if your name's on the ballot, that means that person has to he's got to spend money.
He's got to address it.
Yeah.
What's going
Yeah.
on?
Absolutely. So, and everybody that runs is siphoning just a little bit more of that money from the big machine that is the good old party.
Putting ideas in people's heads.
Grandpa's old party. Grandpa's only party? Yeah.
I'm a grandpa, and that's not my party.
That's not actually true because
Old prick? No.
the issues and the policies and platforms that are now called progressive, they cross all barriers. They cross all age barriers, and people that really look into it and see that there can be a path to those solutions, get behind them. Because I really believe that, as I said earlier, when it was just me and Derrick here, that people inherently want good things for other people too. So
I still believe that for now.
Yeah, I try to
operating
believe that.
from that premise, I still have hope.
Yeah.
I still have hope in our country, our state, our party. Everybody sitting here is a Democrat. Next Gen Dems. What do you want? Before we get out of here, before we finish this episode, which is a supersized episode.
Can I say one more thing? Also,
Absolutely,
while we're talking about
absolutely.
filing, if you haven't been happy with the way that the Democratic Party has been working, and I was one of those people, yeah,
I'll be honest.
get,
I did one of these numbers. So tell them in the
You-
comments.
Right,
that I
right.
did
you
They're gonna
can't.
see me.
this. Yeah, maybe they didn't see it. Just believe me, I did a little.
Blame it on us.
I know you personally. You're very disgruntled.
And actually raging. She's seething
Yeah.
inside.
You can get involved. Find your local committee. If you don't have a local committee, guess what? You are now the local committee.
Make one.
Okay?
You
Make
just
one.
became your local committee. Now
Also,
go find friends.
today was the beginning of filing, not just for us, but it's also the beginning of filing to run to be the head of your local county committee. So if you're not happy with the people, you've been shut out of your county committee because they don't
can run.
You can run. Go to your circuit clerk's office. Sign up. It doesn't cost a thing. Your name gets put on the ballot. And if you get enough votes, guess what? You were the chair of your local committee.
Yeah.
2 years
St.
ago.
Louis, if you're not happy with how your committee has acted,
Exactly right.
shameless plug.
Exactly right.
I just want to clarify because down in our area, we actually run for the committee seats, and then the seats vote for the chair. So
That could-
But
it's
you
a
have
little
to
bit different
register.
everywhere.
But you have to register to be considered.
Right. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Down in our area, it's the same thing he's saying about as just the committee itself will vote for the chair. In your area, maybe the chair is done through the actual public.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
but
every-
you
They're
but
not
you
on the
but
ballot,
you
they
get
can't
you
vote.
get a voice. Right.
Yeah.
If you get elected.
Every county is a little different, whether you go by precinct or ward or township or whatever, and it's very confusing. And if you don't already know this, please get in touch with any one of us. And if we don't know the answer for you, we will find the person who does.
I will forward you to Curtis immediately.
Yeah, and shameless plug here, if you live in Miller County and you're a registered Democrat, contact me immediately. We need polling judges. We don't even have enough polling judges in
And that
order to
job
cover
pays.
some. Yeah, it does pay $9 an hour plus mileage.
And you might be there like 15 hours.
You're going to be there from 5:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night, and you're going to get paid for your miles to the polling place, which Miller County, it's not hard to put miles on a vehicle out there.
I'm learning
Pretty
that.
spread out.
It's the easiest money that you will ever be able to make.
And that goes
we
not
need that
just for
all
his
over
counties.
the
Every
states.
county needs poll judges.
All over the state, you would be surprised how many. They're supposed to try to get an equal amount of Republican and Democrat poll judges. But if they don't have enough Democrats as poll judges, they replace them with Republicans. And that's how we get where we're at. Another thing, speaking to what you were talking about, if you're angry, if you're disillusioned with politics in general, or even the Democratic Party specifically, if you exited, if you were one of the 14 million Democrats that left the Democratic Party because you weren't happy with the way things went in 2016, know that some of the people sitting at this table are just like you. But instead of running away, or instead of throwing your hands up and not being involved,
I did that
we
first.
decided to get involved.
We dove in head first.
We dove in head first because if we're going to continue to let other people make change, we're not going to like the change we see. So we have to be the change that we want to see in this world, and the only way that we can do it.
that.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see.
you want to see.
Exactly right. Where's it from? I've been saying it so long, I forgot where I stole it from.
It was Gandhi, wasn't it?
Wu-Tang Clan?
Yeah.
Inspirational calendar.
Gandhi, the Wu-Tang Clan, and an inspiration calendar from the 70s.
And could be Campbell soup for the soul, too.
Right.
Campbell
Yeah.
soup for the soul.
There you go. There you go.
That's
The
right.
Curtis Wylde original.
Yeah.
I will take all the credit. I wrote the thing from the 70s.
Yeah.
I did the Campbell soup
Yeah.
can.
And you were in
It
Wu-Tang.
was all
He actually
me, but
he's
I'm
actually a
just
time
kidding.
traveler.
Hashtag not me, us. But we are gonna end this supersized episode. It's been fantastic having you all on.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you very much, all of you, for having having the time to come out and join me on this really special day where we all registered to run for office and to do something about the world that we live in.
Remember that everybody in your financial life cares about politics, whether you do or not. Your landlord cares about it, your boss cares about it, your utility companies care about it, and if you don't find yourself a seat at the table, chances are you were on the menu. Get yourself a seat at the table,
Yeah.
folks.
Get off the menu.
Yeah, everything is politics, whether you call it politics or not.
Or whether you like it or not.
Carol.
Yes.
All intersects. Sarah, tell us your name, tell us your district, and how to get a hold of you, and how people can contribute and get involved in your campaign.
I'm Sarah Hinkle, Legislative District 162, which is primarily Joplin and Webb City, but I will take supporters from everywhere. As of right now, my candidacy is new, so I don't have an official website. You can find me on Facebook, Sarah Hinkle. I'm even on Twitter, but I don't use it a whole lot, but find me wherever you can. Heck, I'll even give out my number and email. Email is pretty easy. It's sarahhinkle@yahoo.com. Phone number 417-389-8227, because that's going to be on my business cards anyway. So get in contact with me. And if I, like I said earlier, if I can't lead you in the right direction, I can definitely find the right person who can. I'm going to quote myself from 2 days ago, and whatever issues you may be thinking of or talking about at a certain time, we're all in this together. It affects every one of us to varying degrees. And if you get the right people in office, we can all succeed together.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you, Sarah. Derek? I know you already gave it earlier, but let's do the
Right.
Facebook and your Act Blue.
Act Blue, be Derrick Nowlin, Nowlin for the 134th at Act Blue. Email Nowlin for the 134th at Gmail. Same with the Facebook account, Nowlin for the 134th. And I do have my website up very shortly. I will send out notices about that through my Facebook.
Okay. Bryan Struebig?
Bryan Struebig, I'm running for the State Senate in the 6th District. So if you live in Miller County, Montauk County, Cole County, Osage County, Marys County, or Gasconade County, get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me at www.bryanformo.com. That's my website. You can also go on there. There's links to sign up to volunteer for the campaign. There's links to donate, which give me some money. You can also follow me on Facebook at Struebig for Senate, and that's STRUEB as in boy, IG, the number 4 Senate. And if you just want to email me, you can get me at Struebig, the number 4 Senate at gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, Bryan. John?
Last but not least, me, JohnKiehne.com, JohnKiehne.com. I'm on Facebook, John Kiehne for 3, Twitter, John Kiehne for 3, Instagram, John Kiehne for 3.
Which is very important, by the way, as far as marketing is concerned.
Consistency.
Keep it all the same way.
And by the way, Brian's got my back over there in those counties, so I got to be knocking on some doors, and so he's going to be packing some heat.
Outstanding.
Everybody pass.
All right. Well, last but not least, I am your host, Curtis Wylde. I am on the Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm on the DNC. I am also a candidate for state representative in District 107. You can check me out on Facebook, /Wylde for rep, for the number. You can also check me out on Twitter, Curtis Wylde, at Curtis Wylde. I actually had most of these before I decided to run for office. So,
really?
Yeah, so I didn't
hey, do we get to do it where you feature us
everything.
So we can do our thing and you wear your wrestling outfit and
it's very possible. I actually did think about wearing my pro wrestling robe today.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can also check me out on wildforthepeople.com. You can contribute. You can contribute. I'm not wearing spandex.
Oh, okay. Come on, man.
You can contribute at donate.wildforthepeople.com, and you can also connect with us right here on Next Gen Dems at /NXT. No, at on Twitter, NXTGENDEMS. And you can check out nextgendems.us or .us, however you'd like to say that, which is also the URL. That's the URL. And we're available on iTunes, podcast.com, and the video will be available on Facebook and YouTube at Next Gen Dems. So check us out. Thank you, everyone, for coming on.
Thank you.
Brian, Derrick, and Sarah. Thank you guys all for coming on. My name is Curtis Wylde, and this was an episode of Next Gen Dems.
Yay!